his heirs and successors according to law. So help me God.
It's happened before, but it is nonetheless still rather extraordinary that somebody who was only elected or officially sworn in as an MP less than 24 hours ago, in 3 weeks' time, is going to be running the country.
Yes, I think it is rather extraordinary. I think the issue isn't whether someone like that should automatically have to hold a general election. If Andy Burnham wants to introduce major changes to our constitution, he's talked about overhauling the House of Lords. He's also talked about overhauling our electoral system, bringing in some form of PR. I think if he wants to do any of those things, he needs a mandate from the public to do them. To try and do them without calling an election, I think, would be a constitutional outrage.
I've got an interesting tweet. There's always a tweet, Julia.
Yep.
If I can just read this out to you from Andy Burnham 3 years ago. We need to start demanding a general election at the end of this Tory leadership election. Well, well, well. That was Andy Burnham actually 4 years ago in 2022. So we're saying stick by your word, be consistent, Andy, and when you're Prime Minister, call a general election.
The battle is really on, though, for number 11. Who's going to be the Chancellor? Ed Miliband, don't forget, has played an integral key role in this coup, and it is a coup because no one apart from 25,000 good people of Makerfield have voted for this guy. Yeah. So he's played a pretty integral role in undermining Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer and Ed Miliband aren't really speaking. He could want a big reward. But, he is, probably the most left-wing person in the government, and he will spook the markets.
Lou Hay, I mean, the reality is, look, she served her time. She was cast out of government. The reality is, as you said, she has been central to his campaign. She was central to his campaign in Makerfield. More broadly, she's been central to his campaign to enter Downing Street. He owes her, and she will definitely get a role. I'm not.
What do you say to the people that have texted me in their droves this morning? This is a really corny sentence, but it's true. That lawbreakers can't be lawmakers, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, but the reality is she's going to get a job. So the answer is yes, they can.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, very good morning, my friends. Just gone 6 o'clock. What is it? Tuesday, the 14th of July. You would talk, of course, JK at the controls. Well, I'm not, Marcus. The home of common sense and the home of you, the alarm clock. Brit, don't know what you're doing today. Up and at it, heading home, trying to get the kids organised. I like Matt Vickers, just getting up nice and... Are you good, Mr Vickers?
We love a bright and early morning.
A great story. His mates are down. He's actually got friends, a Tory MP with friends, and he's been so busy the last 2 nights. And genuinely, they said to him last night, what was it? I didn't realise MPs did this much work.
Yeah, they were stunned.
They were stunned.
Late nights behind the dispatch box, early mornings coming in to see you.
Good man. Right, listen, what are you waking up to this morning? This Ann Widdecombe story continues. When we came off air yesterday, and I don't know what the police are up to, but this is now, it's screaming to us in every single newspaper, front of the Mail. Widdecombe's murder was political. Terror police believe. At some point late yesterday morning, anti-terror cops had taken over the investigation, and actually the Devon and Cornwall police, and I think quite rightly, have been accused of breaking the golden rule of live inquiries by initially insisting that Ann's killing had not been politically motivated. And I think we all have an absolute right to say, what the hell is going on? This was a high-profile a lady. Yes, she was opinionated, she was formidable. She'd been in the public eye for years and years. 78-year-old woman attacked in her own home. I said this yesterday, and it wasn't particularly popular. I thought the initial news coverage was really strange. The first thing out of their mouths was, this is a white British man. That man was then released, and this guy, I have to say that they're holding now on terror charges. He's a suspect. No charges have been made at this stage against him. But they go and they arrest somebody 300 miles away. Isabel Oakeshott said it yesterday. That's strange in itself, because you don't presume it would be a burglary that's gone wrong. No explanation. Then we see a video with this weapon that he gets into his car, and I was reading about the car hadn't been driven off the drive, was growing things out of it for years, it seems. Drives at breakneck speed, had to, in the 4 hours between the CCTV footage and when they believe dear sweet poor old Ann was murdered. And then we have sort of this hiatus. Peter Blexley told us yesterday on this show, if you remember, you should hear something by 9 o'clock this morning because they would have to let us know about either extending the arrest period or letting the suspect go. Next thing we hear is the suspect from Rotherham had communist literature at home, amongst other things, and now the anti-terror squad group of police are investigating. This is a story that is going absolutely nowhere, and it centres on, as I said, a poor sweet lady who was a friend of this station and a friend of many. And you know, a lot of people have written a lot in the last couple of days about some of her views, and I've done this job long enough. There are all sorts of people on other stations that I admire and respect, and some I don't. But a lot of people on the left were saying she was anti-gay marriage, she was a bigot, she was this. Go and read what Andrew Pearce and Ian Dale from LBC say. Both men who are in civil partnerships, both who, with a smile on their faces, said she didn't agree with what we were, but she was our dearest, dearest friend. That's what this is about. This is, and this is just being captured. It's being captured by the left to say some horrendous things. It always worries me about the left, right? You know, this be kind. Everybody should be kind and sit down and eat couscous. They're vile, really, aren't they, to be fair, when push comes to shove. 0344 499 1000. More about that suspect. No charges yet. We'll keep you updated through breakfast. We need your voice notes, we need your calls, and we need your texts on 87222. Start your message with the word talk. The fallout from this continues. You might have heard me say yesterday Reform were then paying for their own MPs to have maximum security. Yesterday, Nigel Farage granted talks with an elite government security team. At the same time, it's been discovered that Nigel refused taxpayer-funded security initially because he felt it was inadequate. This resulted in much criticism yesterday, and the Speaker, Lindsay Hoyle, claims, well, he was very upset because they claimed in Reform that he didn't care about all MPs. That's caused a bit of a furore. I don't know if you saw this as well, loads in the news. Labour's safeguarding minister, let's just get that ready, here we go. It's a bit like the corruptions minister and the housing. Labour's safeguarding minister, Natalie Feeds, has been forced to apologise after accusing Reform UK of faux outrage following the death of Ann Widdecombe. I would respectfully suggest to any broadcaster to watch their mouths when you're talking about something so volatile. That from me. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. And ladies and gentlemen, the countdown is on. In 100, I'm not very good at 44 hours, Andy Burnham will indeed become the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Shockingly today, he's going to address the Commons as he vows to be accountable, but Tony Blair warns him you're not going to be loved. Of course you're not going to be loved. You'll be loved for about 5 bloody minutes. And when you raise taxes, because you haven't got a plan, really, have you? Come on, let's be honest. Yeah, you've got nice eyebrow. Honestly, that's all going to go wrong. And my #1 story today to prove what a bunch of locusts politicians are is that slimy... Oh, God, I hate him with a passion. I don't know if you sat me down and said, right, who do you hate more, Sadiq Khan or Ed Miliband? I don't know. It's such a difficult one. Let me know who you hate more. That sounds awful. But Ed Miliband is apparently and allegedly, according to the Telegraph today, prepared to accept that we should drill in the North Sea as long as he gets the job of Chancellor. So on the one hand, we'll go, whoa, we're going to drill. And then he'll raise taxes to 38%. More on Shabana Mahmood's asylum crackdown and whether, indeed, MPs should extend their summer break or shorten it so that Andy Burnham can indeed do what he should do, not just become Prime Minister and do nothing for the people and the elected representatives of the people. 6:10. And a man who's always up and at it, a man with a spring in his step and his hat at a jaunty angle. Matt Vickers, good morning.
Good morning.
It's been an extraordinary week by anybody's standards in politics.
It's been a horrendous week. It has been a horrendous week. I think devastating, isn't it? She was one of a kind, incredible woman who we could do with a few more Ann Widdecombe's in the world, actually, if you could bottle some of the principles, the fact she was willing to say what she thought. She never bent in the wind to anything or anyone. She was, for anybody who got to know her, she was incredible behind the camera as well as in front of the camera. Warm, genuine woman. Same
off air as on air. And I think you make a really salient point, which is, I don't even know, it was a politician, actually on the other side, I think, who just said, they don't make them like that anymore. You know, we've got to a point in this country where it's become so personal and so horrific. And if this is political, obviously the reverberations will be felt for many days, weeks and months to come. But here was a politician who wasn't chasing headlines, clickbait or a job, fervently believed, and I love the fact that two of her greatest friends, Ian Dale and Andrew Pierce, I mean, the Andrew Pierce thing in the Mail yesterday it wasn't coming to his civil partnership, right? Had a whiskey with him the night before and wished him good luck, and he's one of the dearest friends of Andrew Pierce's partner, but wasn't going to a civil wedding, didn't agree with it. And sort of you think, well, you know, the left yesterday was saying, you bigot, you this, which they tend to do, but she was loved, man, wasn't she?
She was, and it is, I mean, you kind of talk about her as being a politician not of our age because she didn't bend, she didn't think about how it was going to be spun in the newspapers and social media. She said what she believed in regardless, she didn't care. But actually she was also ahead of the game. She was someone who probably was built for the modern age in that she captured attention in a way that nobody else would, because she was so honest, because she was so forthright. She wasn't afraid to have a laugh at herself. That was an incredible thing. And then to see what's come of it. For her to die is devastating. For her to die in those circumstances is just beyond.
We have to keep saying this guy's a suspect from Rotherham. But this, I mean, I have to say, Isabel Oakeshott yesterday made a very strong point about she believed that it was, you know, politically motivated. Widdecombe's murder was political. Terror police believe. Let's talk about the police. Straight away out the gate, the police said it's not politically motivated and this is a white British guy. For many people who watch and listen to this station, immediately they smelt a rat. I'm being serious.
Well, I mean, the lessons should have been learned. We knew what happened with the Southport thing. The independent reviewer of terror legislation said if you create a vacuum, if you don't share with the public what's going on, then all sorts of things run rampant, stories run rampant, things go ajar. The lesson for the police was be upfront, share what you know. But then there is a challenge for the police. There's a challenge for the police of 24-hour news, and the fact that people like me and you are sat here dissecting what is and isn't happening, the fact that social media runs rampant, someone puts something on there and all of a sudden we all buy it because it's being shared by someone who has a bit of nous, so it must be true. And then the worst thing that's come out of it all, before you even get to the police, is some of the absolutely vile, disgusting stuff that's gone online. The fact that people are willing to say some of those things online, it tells you something about the modern age, it tells you something about social media, it tells you something about how sick and polarised our politics is.
Am I wrong in saying what I said about the left? I was having this discussion up in Edinburgh with my daughter's, some of her friends at the weekend. I don't care if you disagree with my opinion. I respect the fact that you've got yours, but I will not accept that mine should be cancelled, bullied out, trashed and ruined. The problem with the left is, and this absolutely symbolises it, that you see that Harry, I don't even know what the trans activist that wrote, you know, I hope you were handcuffed to a bed and screamed in agony. Now, in my mind, and I had a really interesting chat with Peter Blexley, which is why I want to ask you about it, we're all for free speech. Is there a line, or do we just ignore that? It's vile. It's absolutely vile. It's repugnant, isn't it?
There clearly isn't a line for everybody. And then I also thought, what I also thought was very weird is you got that transgender, wasn't it a Labour candidate at some point?
Harry Herbert, Heather Herbert, I don't know, Herbert, I'm going to call it.
The person was a Labour candidate at some point, like, the left tells you how, you know, their own morality and they're nice and more humane than everything.
That's exactly my point.
Sick, vile, disgusting. Then you got people who said sick, vile things, and then when they found out she was murdered, changed the tune. It is sick and vile to celebrate the death of a woman who put herself up to public service, opened herself up to scrutiny.
Absolutely.
It was an elderly woman. It's just absolutely disgusting and vile. But the other thing I think that probably argues for the police is the people who do things like this, like the person who is accused, the suspect. The problem is people who are willing to go out and do things like this to elderly women in their own homes, it probably is quite difficult to work out the motivation because they're clearly sick, vile individuals and there's something seriously wrong with these people that makes them think that under any situation, that any form of politics or any views of any person means that they have the right to go and do that to a person.
Politically, The response of different parties has attracted criticism. You'll have seen the pictures of Nigel Farage laying flowers, then later I think Zia Youssef, Richard Tice and Lee Anderson did. There were some very nice things spoken in the House yesterday across all sides. Dan Hodges, though, who's on this show regularly, I think will be tomorrow, he took aim and was quite critical of Reform's response to Ann's death. Andy, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. Andy from Birmingham. Hope you're well, mate. Hope you have a great show today. I just want to say, the last 3 or 4 days, now it's basically they're saying it could be political motivated murder. Last 3 or 4 days, I think, to be fair, and if you look at all the evidence, Nigel and Reform members have been the subject of an intense, disgusting smear campaign. We all know Boo-Bye comes on your programme. He thinks he's high and mighty, but he's wrong on this one, and people were telling him he's wrong. He was basically accusing Reform of jumping on poor Ann's death as being political, when all they done at the end of the day was went down and mourned her and laid a wreath. And he's been on and on and on for the last 2 weeks, right? It's time he stopped, because he's made to have egg on his face. He's wrong, right? He probably has not man enough to admit that he was wrong, but I've never known such a disgusting hatchet job on a political party. Yeah, I know exactly that that's what they're paid to do, and they'll say we're the press, we're here to scrutinise, but it's not scrutiny, mate. It's smearing, and it's unfair smearing. Anyway, said me bit. Have a great day, mate.
He's actually talking about Dan Hodges, who, of course, is a regular on the show, writes for the Mail. This was the tweet that he wrote. The police ask Reform not to speculate, so Reform attack them. The family ask, so they start to attack them. Close friends ask, they in turn get attacked. Journalists report this, then they get attacked too. This is how desperate Reform now are to deflect from Farage and the sleaze. What's your response to that, Matt Vickers?
Do you know what? It's difficult for politicians in these things. I mean, you've got to side with the family and whatever the family say in the first instance, because they don't want to see politicians running around and it being seen as some sort of political opportunity. So you've got to think about what the family think in those things. But it's very difficult for politicians to get the balance right in this and it not look distasteful, because if you do nothing, you're a terrible person who didn't care.
Absolutely.
If you're seen to show up and march up and down the street and do the filming like Farage, you're seen as a bad guy who's weighing in and cashing in on the death in a political way. So it's a very fine balance.
Well, I kept thinking about Joe Cox's murder, which was appalling, and the Labour Party and all parties laid wreaths. And I thought about, and this was extraordinary, David Amess. Do you know that Ann Widdecombe was the godmother of David Amess's
She spoke at his funeral?
Absolutely. It's really interesting for me. And just to finish Dan's tweet, sorry to be a stuck record, but as I said, Reform and Nigel Farage's priority in all of this is Nigel Farage. I've been saying Reform are attempting to deflect from scrutiny of Farage. They've been hysterically denying it. So let's test. I predict they would try to link today's statement about anti-terror police now leading the investigation with Farage's $5 million donation. Now, there's no doubt at all, right? There's no doubt whatsoever that Nigel Farage has been at the coalface of accusations. It resulted in him resigning as MP of Clacton, calling a by-election in which he seems at this point to be, we'll read them out later, facing only a certain number of independent candidates. All the big parties said no. We'll all have our opinions about that. Your point is this, though, and it's so good. She was a spokesman, an official spokesman, Ann Widdecombe, for Reform. If he and they don't go and show their respects, they're callous, they're whatever. If they go, they're manipulating the media. Do you believe Reform have used this opportunity in any way to deflect media interest from the accusations about the money that Nigel Farage received from Christopher Harbour?
I think people who are watching this stuff online have seen Farage marching up and down the street with the film, and they'll make their own mind up about that and
What's your
think
thoughts?
that's the right thing.
What's your thoughts?
I don't think in any way we should be trying to link the fishy $5 million with the death of... I think the two things are completely separate. I think this is an awful, horrific thing that's happened to someone who's active in politics. It was a huge public figure who has stood up for values and principles throughout, and that is one thing in and of itself. I think the debate around whether somebody should or shouldn't declare money that they've had the way in which they behaved in response to having received that money, whether they've received money from abroad, whether they've received it from, are two completely different issues. I just think they're two very different things. I think the response of politicians to things like this is criticised. You've had it if you do it, you've had it if you don't. If you didn't.
Love to hear your thoughts on this. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Meanwhile, and this came out last night, Nigel was granted talks with an elite government security team. It's also been revealed that he was offered tax-funded security but turned it down when it was inadequate. There were rumours that initially that money was going to be for security, and then he said it's none of your business. The Commons Speaker, though, Lindsay Hoyle, wasn't best pleased yesterday when Zia Youssef said that Reform MP were not cared about at all. Is that an example of what Dan Hodges said, or is that Reform? Because let's be honest, if one of mine had been, if I was in a political party and one of my colleagues had been bludgeoned to death in such an outrageous way, I'd be terrified for my life.
I think...
And you'd have to think it's because you're in a party that's saying things that some people on the left and others don't want to hear.
I mean, the reality of it is there are security measures in place for all MPs. You should never get into the discussion about what they are, but there is stuff that's there to protect them at home, there is stuff that's there to protect us at events, and there's measures put in place. And I think it's horrific when people start talking about the ins and outs of them because you're giving the clues to the bad guys. So there is measures in place. They're universal and they're there for all MPs. It's sad that in the modern world that this is part of public discourse, that as an MP, I imagine like every other MP, I've had the death threats, you've had the assaults.
Have you? You've had death threats?
I've had death threats, I've been assaulted. My parents...
Tell me about when you were assaulted.
I've had several hits. I've had a scrap with someone on a door, I've had things thrown at me, it's just part of modern discourse in politics, and you get constant death threats on social media, in emails, via the voicemail, but that's kind of part of politics now, which is a very sad situation, that if you put yourself forward for elective office, this is what you can expect.
What were you going to say about your parents?
My parents, so this is an interesting story. So some time ago, my parents' house, there was a petrol bomb threat. Somebody online talked about the best disinfectant for people like my parents who, put my Conservative poster up at election time. The best disinfectant was petrol bombs. This person was a Labour Party member. I don't think the Labour Party took any action against this individual. They served as a member of the Labour Party. There was no action taken, nothing happened. And that's the point at which some of us in politics like to think you put yourself at risk. Actually, if you've got kids, if you've got family, it's not just you that you're putting on the line to stand up for your principles. It's others.
How are we allowing that? How do we change that? How do we make that better? Because in the end, nobody will want to be an MP, will they?
I think it's about the response of security and policing to what happens to MPs, and we've got to come down like a ton of bricks, because it actually undermines the democratic process. It stops people being as brave as Anne and saying whatever they think regardless.
Yeah.
And the minute MPs and politicians start doing that, we're in a terrible place. If politicians can't stand up for their views, then there's no point in even playing democracy, because we'll all be too terrified to... So you've got to have balls about you to do politics.
Are you scared? Do you get scared?
Not really, but people around you get scared. People around you get scared, which is a big deal. They worry about what's going to happen, where is he, what's going on. And then you also, you think about Anne's circumstances and the fact she was there for 24 hours. It's just like
terrific,
devastating, horrendous situation.
Well said, mate. 0344 499 1000. Breakfast on Talk, the home of common sense, and it's the Alarm Clock Brit Show. Listen, whatever you're doing, what do you make of this whole tragic story? We repeat this morning, all the papers reporting that Widdecombe's murder was political. Terror police have rearrested the suspect in Rotherham, who drove over 300 miles to Anne's house with a weapon in his car. He is a suspect, no charges, but this story is moving at lightning speed. We'll talk about personal security for MPs. Nigel Farage, it turned out yesterday, refused taxpayer-funded security because he said it was inadequate. Dan Hodges criticising yesterday Reform and saying they're using this, in effect. They're using it to deflect, if you like, all of that sort of massive sort of pile on about Nigel's money and about donations. Love to know your thoughts on that. So many people are getting involved. 0344 499 1000. Morning, Lee.
Morning, Jezza. Lee from Scarborough. Off to work in his van, veteran. The whole Ann Widdecombe thing. What gets me is, it just doesn't add up, Jezza. This is getting murkier and murkier by the minute. Police, yeah, what they're saying, there's something we're not being told. It just doesn't add up. Poor Anne, R.I.P. Anne. Great show, Jezza. Keep it up, man.
Thought about it hard, and I've decided today I will resign as a Member of Parliament for Clacton-on-Sea, thereby forcing a by-election.
Count Binface apparently is now 5-1.
Brilliant.
You know, so look, I mean, you know, if I were being flippant, I'd say Count Binface's campaign is now well and truly up and running, and Reform are struggling to put a lid on it.
Let me be absolutely clear. I have done nothing wrong. I have not.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. 6:26, Tuesday morning, July 14. Matt Vickers here. We're going through the papers. The main story, of course, Ann Widdecombe. The Times reporting this morning that Ann Widdecombe's murder, that everybody's reporting it, taken over by terror police. It's on the front page of every single newspaper. They believe now politically motivated, which many people have said all along. Isabel Oakeshott was fervently saying this yesterday. Initially, of course, Devon and Cornwall police said there's nothing to see here. It's not politically motivated. It's a white English bloke. Everything's fine. They then released that person, arrested a man at, I think, 9:30 at night. 12 cops swooped on this property in Rotherham. This gentleman, who is a suspect, was arrested. It started to smell a bit fishy, Matt, to take one of your phrases, because yesterday morning, by 9 o'clock, under the rules, this guy should have been either released or the charges made or the time extended. Nothing happened, and then later in the morning he's been rearrested, and that now the anti-terror cops have taken over the Ann Widdecombe murder case. We will update you. This guy is simply a suspect. No charges at this point, but we will let you know as soon as possible. Hev, good morning.
Good morning, Jezza. This is Hev from Kent. Yeah, all these nasty, horrible attacks online to Reform, that horrible, evil, and there's no other word of saying the evil things people have been saying about Ann Widdecombe. I mean, who has she ever hurt? She's had an opinion just like anybody else. But come on, these nasty personal attacks must stop.
Couldn't agree more. 0344 499 1000. Can we go back to that thing with you, Matty? Because I had many debates yesterday about free speech. Peter Blexley was very firm on this. You know, free speech means free speech, and even if we don't like what somebody is saying, that's sort of got to be. If you want a free press, you have to allow that. But we talked earlier about a line. I hear that this Heather, whatever, I don't know, the Herbert, Water, I'm calling it, Water Herbert, is being investigated not by the police, but actually by her university, his university, whatever, I'm not sure. Where do you stand on that? Do we crack down on that, or are you allowed, who decides what the line is? Are you allowed to say, I wish she'd been murdered in a horrible way and suffered? I mean, it's appalling to say that.
It is absolutely sick. It falls well short of any line that we should have in any discourse at all. I mean, free speech should be about your ability to have a view on things and policies and opinions and positions. You don't have free rein to go around and throw comments like that about individuals.
Who polices free speech? So who polices free speech?
Well,
then?
I think actually, do you know what? you should take the Ann Widdecombe approach to things. You should be unafraid to say what you think about a situation, but the idea that you become personal in it, you would never find Ann Widdecombe being personal about somebody. She'd tell you or me if she disagreed with us, and if she thought what we were doing was wrong, she would tell us that. She was never personal. She never went for people in the way that these individuals, these vile, sick individuals, are going for. It's heartbreaking.
But what do we do about those vile, sick individuals?
Do you know what? Social media platforms have to clamp down on threats. They also have to clamp down on stuff that is just publicly indecent and sick.
This is interesting. Susan in Worthing, morning, Jez. As far as I know, there has been absolutely no comment from the King about Anne's brutal murder. A woman who served his government for over 23 years, that dedicated her life to his country, not a single word that she's slain in her own home at 78. I'm a monarchist, and I have to say I am utterly disgusted, says Susan in Worthing, by his silence. Gertie, good morning. It feels like the left-leaning have lost their humanity. Nowadays, we are judged by labels instead of character, and hostility has replaced genuine debate. When we stop treating those who think differently as fellow human beings, humanity itself begins to disappear. Humanity isn't just about being human. It's about showing compassion, kindness, empathy and respect, even when we disagree. This is what the left-leaning has lost.
Inhumane, I think that is the word. The way that they choose to espouse these vile, sick suggestions. I mean, to believe that person from Scotland, like to come out with those opinions online, to have them published, is sick. I also found it weird, the number of them who went out there, tweeted, and then suddenly were brought back down, actually. That was one of the powerful things about Twitter.
What, because the poor lady was murdered?
But some of them went out there, they threw these views around.
True.
And when they realised that what they were saying, when the public via Twitter went for them, some of them went back and deleted them. So there was a filter there from public opinion that when these people were called out, reflected on what they'd done. That's the problem with social media. That's the problem with 24-hour news. People go out there and when they've had a drink, when they're a bit tired and grumpy. I can't text that fast, actually.
My thumbs are too big. You're absolutely right, though.
The filter was there for some people.
Yeah.
Some of them were brazen enough to double down on it, but some of them did go and delete it. Some of them there's examples on Twitter of people who apologised, and hopefully that's the lesson. Hopefully that sends a message to anybody else who might think about tweeting something so sick, vile and inhumane.
Good morning, both. Farage and the Reform MPs were just paying their respects to a well-loved colleague and friend. What's wrong with that? I thought it was a lovely gesture, says Margaret in Birmingham. Steve's in Sussex. I messaged you a few weeks ago. Hodges changed from being a Starmer supporter to an arch critic. Now he's attacking reform. He's shown his true left beliefs. I don't have a problem with Dan Hodges disagreeing with stuff I say, but he is basically tweeting and accusing reform. And I'm just going to repeat this. Now, I've been saying reform are attempting to deflect from scrutiny of Nigel Farage. They've been hysterically denying it. So let's test. I predict, says Dan Hodges, that they will try to link today's statement about anti-terror police now leading the investigation with Farage's £5 million donation. We'll get Dan Hodges on at some point this week. Morning, Jez. Dan Hodges, he was an ardent supporter of Starmer for a long time. He was wrong then and he's wrong now. Jane. Morning, Jez, and morning, lovely Matt. Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
And Anne formed her opinions from her Christianity and she believed in the Bible teachings, not personal. Should I send Matt a hug? I'm 74.
Oh, yeah, bring him on. Bring him on.
You like a hug, is that allowed? Rogers in Wales. If I was a Reform MP, I wouldn't trust Labour to have anything to do with my security. Do you also notice that Nigel Farage is like a fortune teller, as everything he says before anyone else comes true? First he is condemned, but then he's proven right. It's a very good point. He was right about Southport. He's right about Ann Widdecombe, wasn't he?
Well, I think...
No, he was.
He was.
I mean, he was right about Southport, and he did say this is premeditated murder, and everybody went, in the uniparties and the press, and, you know, there's an argument to say maybe that was too soon to say it, but he certainly got it right again, didn't he?
I think, do you know what, I think we talk about the police's reaction, we talk about the ability to call out what's going on. There is a huge challenge for the police. Yes, they should be upfront and honest about it. I mean, there's lots of comments about the fact they came out instantly to tell you it was a white male. Well, you started
this programme by saying that Southport was the precursor for that. But my problem with Southport has always been, and I've never said this to you, I absolutely reckon that they knew absolutely that it was not an illegal migrant. It was a Christian boy from Wales whose life had gone wrong. Callicane, right? Is it not Callicane? But, sorry. That one, yeah. But this is really important, and it sounds conspiratorial. I think it suited Starmer's rhetoric at that point to keep quiet while it was fuelled on social media. People took to the streets because they were convinced it was an illegal migrant. Then he sent in the army, said, you're all far right, and put people in jail. So I get we went from that to straight away. But there's a difference between keeping us informed and lying to us. And the police lied, didn't they? Axel Rudabicana, of course. Thank you.
Do you know what I think there is criticism there to be had about creating this vacuum, about not being upfront, about not getting the information out there. But also, do you know if they push the information out and it's inaccurate and it's incorrect, then they'll be slaughtered for that as well.
But it was incorrect. It was incorrect. And can you look at that and go, was it political correctness? Why did they have to say, or why did they choose to say, this has to be structured, sorry, it was a white British man? That was to say to people, I mean, it's turned out that that part is true. It's not an illegal migrant. It's not somebody that people can jump on the bandwagon. I think that's very important. But then to say it's not politically motivated, why would you say that before it was proven?
I think, well, I mean, two things there. Lots of people have said about the fact that within an instant we were told it was a white male, and people have pointed that out.
What do you think about that?
But the other thing is actually...
What do you think about that?
Well, I think there's a valid point, but I also think that when you look at this individual case, the guy who was arrested first was a white male. Can you imagine the guy was then released and the next person who they found had turned out not to be white? Then we would be criticising for that. So I think there is a valid point about they should be upfront, share the information they've got, but I think there are also restraints around what they can.
You also make a really good point. If the first man, who was completely innocent, a handyman and a father of one, if anything had got out, his life would never be the same again. So there is an important point there. Julie on Hodges, good morning.
Ann Hodges, sorry, but you can't have him on your show no more. He is obsessed with Farage. He is relentless, day in, day out, morning, noon and night. Farage, Farage, Farage. That's all he tweets about. He needs help.
Julie, the thing about the show is, and genuinely, you know, it's all voices are welcome, and you can phone in and you can question him and you can put him down, and that's exactly what we'll do the next time Dan Hodges is on. We'll open up the phone line so people can have their say. Here's the man. How long have you been doing this for me? A year?
Yeah.
And they're warming to you a little bit, aren't they? I mean, you used to
They're learning to tolerate me. They're learning to tolerate me.
Your mother rang me and said...
Someone said I was lovely there. I think there's a positive.
No, it's a woman in a care home. I'm joking. Farage has been attacked for 30 years. All the opposition to him is sly, and they take every chance to pile on. The internet has caused a lot of this. Platforms for the vile cowards. Joe Cox is still mentioned with sadness, with Anne, as seemingly is, in my opinion, to get at Farage. Very interesting. Morning, Jez. This is Ryan McCabe. Morning, Ryan. While it is understandable that MPs or politicians are feeling unsafe at the moment, if they are unsafe with all the additional security they have, imagine how unsafe we are as members of the public. Their role is to keep us safe, not just themselves. They are failing us. Rest in peace. That's interesting. Claire. Chris in Greenham. Do you know where Greenham is?
No.
Greenham Common. What was that famous for?
Tell me more.
That's where all the anti-nuclear weapon lot used to sit and eat couscous, isn't it? Greenham Common, all that years ago. Cross-legged, swampy. Having freedom of speech is also the freedom not to speak when it's appropriate. This is interesting. Vile tweets celebrating a death are a very good example of that principle being ignored. I think that's very true. It's how you police it. Mix in Wallington. Ask Matt. All right, then. Gobby. Is there a uniparty decision not to mention reform in conjunction with Ann Widdecombe? Only one Labour MP mentioned her work with reform. Even the bumbling speaker stopped her career at the Brexit Party. Mick in Wallington.
Well, I don't think that... Do you know what? I don't think someone's political party you would mention in such a discussion. Bizarrely, actually, so you end up in this situation as a politician where you're pushed out to comment on a situation like this. So on Friday morning, when everybody was reading the news, I'd ended up on the morning round, so I was going to go and do however many interviews. Didn't know anything about the story. You then learn about this thing overnight, and you just think, well, why did I end up on the thing on the morning round this Friday? Why me? Why? Because you actually would like to just do the human bit and reflect on it rather than end up in front of a camera commenting on it. Because politicians getting involved in things that are about, well, real things, about real people, their lives, these incredible people, well, this incredible woman and what she contributed to. As a politician, there's something slightly uncomfortable about being there, because is it politically motivated? What? Not is the killing politically, but am I politically motivated by being out there?
Do you think the killing was politically motivated?
Well, it sounds like it was, but then again, with people who undertake acts like this, people who would go out and kill a 78-year-old woman in her own home, it's probably quite difficult to see the motivation because they're clearly sick, vile, evil human beings. So actually to pick out a particular motivation is probably quite difficult.
Matt and Jez, the left has gone bananas that the narrative has changed from how sleazy and corrupt Reform allegedly are to how at risk, how compassionate, how humane they are. Watch how the left work to gain back control of the story. The iPaper headline proves my point. I don't read it. What's the iPaper? We'll get it. We'll have a look. Is that true? I mean, Hodges says that Reform are deflecting the criticism of Nigel Farage's financial details. They're going to embrace this story because that deflects. The left, according to Mark and Selby, have gone bananas that the story has moved away from Farage. What's your take on that?
I think they're two very separate, very different things. I don't think that the circumstances dictate there should be no scrutiny of the 5 million and the Farage. That's something that's going on over there and has nothing to do with
This
what's
is the
gone
story
on
in the
here.
front of the eye. Farage declined taxpayer-funded security, calling offer inadequate. It's his right to think if it's not adequate, or isn't it? I mean, he always said, I think he was offered some, but he didn't think it was right.
But the state provides and has always provided to significant figures to lead him. Well, to the Prime Minister, to the Leader of the Opposition, has always provided some level of security. That sounds to be what Nigel Farage was offered in this situation, and then he chose to say that it was inadequate and made alternative arrangements.
You're becoming more politically astute at sitting on the fence than anybody, aren't you? It's becoming a regular. It's always a pleasure.
Because you're very good at getting me into trouble, Jeremy.
No, I'm not. Morning. Morning, Deputy Prime Minister. Karen, good morning.
Hi, Jeremy. When you've had a PM that's called everybody in this country far right, and every opportunity they can, they call reform, restore, far right. If you're standing by them, you're all far right. They have pushed this narrative, and they are the far left, and they're not all cuddly wuddly, are they? No, there is no far right in this country. It doesn't exist. But they keep pushing this narrative, and they keep pushing this anti-white rhetoric, and it's getting really, really bad. We are getting sick and tired of the BS.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 18 minutes to 7 o'clock. More from Matt Vickers in a tick. 0344 499 1000. Excuse me, text to 87222. We're talking about Ann Widdecombe. We're talking about Reform's response, the criticism that they have endured from Dan Hodges in the Mail. Let me just repeat. Yesterday, this investigation was now taken over by anti-terror cops. They believe there is political motivation. Many in Reform. Isabel Oakeshott, she said it yesterday. We have to report that the man was rearrested by the terrorist cops. He is a suspect. He's from Rotherham. It's the same man that drove 300 miles in 4 hours with a dirty, great wooden bat. And why did he do that? But he is a suspect, and no charges have, at this moment in time, been given. Of course, we'll keep you updated. It's a rolling news situation. The spotlight, though, has been on reform for all sorts of things. It's just, let's just say a very good morning. Delighted to have him on. Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform. It's been a difficult week, I know, Richard, for you personally and many in the party. I just want to play, well, for people who haven't seen it, your tribute yesterday to Ann Widdecombe in the House of Commons.
We are all reeling with shock, sadness and anguish at the loss of our Anne, and also the manner in which she has been taken from us. She was a colossus in public life, in political life, a legend adored and loved by millions and millions of people. She was an incredible orator who always spoke without notes. Absolutely remarkable. And in 23 years, she made over 8,000 contributions in this place, and some remarkable witty interventions. When an honourable member said that she should disappear with her broomstick, she immediately replied, "I have my broomstick and I will cast a spell over you." Her conviction, her passion and her advocacy for free speech was to be commended. I had the honour of working with her for the last 7 years, and despite being a foot taller than her, I somehow always found myself looking up to her.
Great tribute, Richard. Difficult week for many.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. Indeed, a very difficult week, and in a sense, getting worse. It was a great sadness and pretty tricky giving that eulogy to Anne in the Commons yesterday. You know, when I discovered that she had made over 8,000 contributions and interventions in debates in the Commons and Westminster Hall and things, truly remarkable. And events took a very different turn yesterday. We faced all sorts of abuse from various high-profile journalists and indeed from the Times newspaper, who I am incredibly critical of and put out a pretty robust tweet. I'm still waiting for an apology from them, frankly, for their appalling headline on Sunday when they said we were using this as propaganda, when actually it turns out we were right and the Times Group were utterly, utterly wrong. As, by the way, was Dan Hodges, utterly wrong. No apology forthcoming whatsoever from these people. We are very, very upset and angry. The reality is that counter-terrorism have now taken over the whole inquiry. It's not like they're just helping Devon and Cornwall police with their inquiry. No, they've taken control of the whole thing because of their concerns and anxiety about what they have clearly discovered in this suspect's, whether it's in his house or whether it's on devices, we don't know. But this was a dramatic shift yesterday. The offer by the Home Secretary, which we're very grateful for, to meet Nigel and discuss parliamentary security, additional for him, also for other MPs. I mean, this is like a 180-degree U-turn from the parliamentary authorities, and people should not underestimate what's gone on here.
There's so much I want to ask you about. Dan Hodges, sorry to be a stuck record, he says, but as I said, reform and Nigel Farage's priority, and all of this is Nigel Farage. I've been saying reform are attempting to deflect from scrutiny of Farage. They've been hysterically denying it. So let's test. I predict that they will link to today's statement about anti-terror police now leading the investigation with Farage's £5 million donation. How do you respond to that, Richard?
Just a blatant lie. We haven't done that at all. What we've simply said is that this is a significant heightening of the response. And, you know, I said very gently in the House of Commons yesterday that I would suggest that police forces, when discussing the motive behind these terrible incidents immediately after they take place, say that they're open-minded about the motive, rather than immediately jumping into closing off. Oh, we found no evidence of terrorism. We found no evidence that it's politically motivated.
I mean, Matt Vickers was with me earlier, and actually, he said you're sort of the police. Yes, have a very difficult job, but you have to look back to Southport, and I will never change my opinion, whatever anybody tells me. I think it suited the government's ideology at that moment to allow this febrile sort of atmosphere to build on social media. Everybody was saying it's an illegal migrant. They knew it wasn't. They knew it was a... Rudy Buchanan was a very, very, very mixed-up young man who started in Wales and ended up in Southport. They didn't. People took to the streets. He then sent the police, had them arrested, jailed and put in prison within 24 hours, all on camera, and it looked great. The truth of the matter is, you nailed it for me just then. They don't have to... Why did they have to say it was white and British? Why did they have to say it wasn't politically motivated? It surely there has to be a point where a detective or a constable stands up and goes, listen, this is ongoing, it is very difficult, we've promised to be open with you, somebody is in custody, we cannot give any more at the moment, but we're working on this in Anne's memory. That's what I would prefer.
So actually, I'll slightly disagree there, James. It was actually a good thing they said that it was a white male.
Okay.
Person, because that reduced a level of anxiety.
Get that.
Information being distributed, so that's fine. But they had no idea about the motive. So why close things down?
Yeah.
And that actually made us a bit anxious, and we got ever more anxious as every half day passed. And it's difficult. We want our police to be brilliant and the best in the world, and of course, ideally, we'd all love them never to make a mistake ever. But that's not real life.
How have they handled it, do you think, the police?
I think lessons have to be learned. Don't shut down a motive. If you don't know, just say we're open-minded. We're exploring all options. And that's all they needed to do. So that they've got a lesson to learn from that. But we are where we are. We're in a very difficult place.
Are you helping, are Reform helping the police with their investigation? Have you come up with any ideas why you believe she was targeted?
I personally haven't, but we are looking through emails into the Reform email system as to whether there's any form of specific abuse against Anne. You know, we get thousands of emails every day. Some of them are great and wonderful, and some of them, frankly, are not. That's just the nature of politics. So that's ongoing. But we should not underestimate how this has shifted and changed since they have looked obviously at devices or the house or the room of the suspect, and at the moment he is a suspect, and we don't know whether they fear that actually it's broader than just one suspect. Was he part of a group of people online?
I read last night, nobody seems to have picked up on this, his brother lives in Devon. Did you read that?
I did read that. I don't know if that's any significance. I mean, you know, we appear to know that this guy left his home early on last Wednesday morning and then returned there. You know, we appear to know that the likely alleged murder took place somewhere between 12:20 and 12:50 on that Wednesday. But
can I say, listen, I do this job as best as I can do it. We're mates away from this, as I'm mates with many. How genuinely how does this make you feel? Do you feel like, are you looking over your shoulder genuinely for the first time ever? Are you concerned about the wider ramifications of this, Richard?
Candidly, yes. I mean, we'll learn more when we hear from counter-terrorism, but it's you know, whether it's specific to Reform, we don't yet know. I'm sure we will at some point. Whether it's specific to well-known MPs and former MPs from different parties, we don't know. We'll learn soon. But it's a very bad place for politicians and ex-politicians to be in when this is occurring. And
does it put you off? Does it put you off? Does it put you off to think, do you know what? I'm out there and I'm saying my piece. Matt was telling me earlier, his family, there was a threat of a firebomb in his parents' house. Do you all not at some point go, we've got these values, but I don't need this. I don't need this. This is ludicrous. If this is what it does to my family, my friends, and even me, why don't I walk away?
Yeah, and I'm sorry for Matt and his family. I wasn't aware of that. I think sometimes it's actually easier for the politician themselves, because it's our conviction, our passion, as it was Anne's, than it is. It's actually much harder for the close members of a family who just get sort of wrapped up and sort of entangled in all of this. And I think that's scarier for them. I think what drives us is when we meet people on the street who say please keep going, please keep battling on, please don't give up. And that's one of the key things that drives all of us on, I'm sure.
You touched upon the fact that Nigel was granted talks with an elite government security team. Reform MPs are now getting 24-hour security. I guess, obviously, you're part of that. How's the party going to be able to afford that? Shouldn't the government? I mean, I had this debate yesterday. Are we getting to a point where the government should be providing greater security for all MPs from all parties, Richard?
Well, they make regular assessments, but yes, we're in discussions with them. And while the Speaker is brilliantly committed to the safety of all MPs, the reality is, and I was quite critical yesterday, and I have been critical for some time, some of the people underneath him working for parliamentary security, in my view, are not sufficiently doing their job properly, particularly with regard to the quarter of a mile just outside the parliamentary fence, which is now a huge barrier. But the danger is much more just outside Parliament with these people who, what I call, they waffy. They walk, they abuse, they film, they intimidate, using mobile phones right in your face, a few inches away. It's growing. It's far worse than it was 6, 12 months ago. And there's nothing you can do about these people. It's not actually an offence, but it's pretty hairy and scary. And just last Friday, a gentleman was in court for what he did to me, the abuse and intimidation, on the last day of Parliament before Christmas, when I had to press my buzzer and armed police arrived and the guy was arrested. It turned out he was known to authorities. What the hell were they letting someone known to authorities who had been sectioned before, who they immediately sectioned when they arrested him? Why are they allowing him to roam literally right outside the carriage gates? What's the point of hundreds of armed police inside the parliamentary estate if they're not doing the job properly just outside the estate? That's what I'm critical of.
No, absolutely. And I have to say, you get to a point where you end up wondering who the hell would stand. Zia Youssef tweeted yesterday, Richard, I know you've read it. Lindsay Hall, the Speaker of the House, has no jurisdiction over me. I am not afraid of him. He did not even reply to a letter from a female Reform MP pleading for assistance with security until after I revealed it. So there are issues. What do you make of that tweet?
Yeah, look, Zia, like all of us, is, we are, it's fair to say, I think we're at best emotional, at worst we're pretty wound up.
Yeah.
And so, we are expressing these concerns. And look, I reiterate, actually the Speaker is very committed to our safety, but he's a busy guy. And when you delegate something to a security team, you want them to do the job properly. And they absolutely need to learn from this, step up and do the job properly and reassess the dangers to those of us. Until yesterday, whenever I asked for someone to come with me to a speaking event anywhere in the city, anywhere in London, including, by the way, to synagogues, I was denied security by the parliamentary authorities. Apparently I wasn't a risk. Well, thanks, folks.
Final question, couldn't agree more. Do you think Nigel will be granted greater security after these important talks he was promised yesterday?
Let's wait and see, but I would expect there is a major reassessment going on by what's called RAVEC, that committee, which I think, as I understand, sits away from the parliamentary authorities itself, and I think that is a very significant shift in attitude from the Home Office and the authorities.
Mate, listen, I always appreciate you coming on here. Some people say, this, that and the other. You have to do what you have to believe, and you have to hold on, I guess, to those people in the street that say keep fighting. But there's no point in denying it. Whether you're Matt Vickers, whose parents were targeted, their house, whether it's you worrying about going to a meeting, there is a big, big question to answer about MP security, people in the public eye after this horrific killing. And we appreciate you taking time this morning, Richard. Thank you so much indeed. Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform UK, almost 7 o'clock. Matt Vickers will be back after the news. So much to talk more. I also want to talk about Burnham. 144 hours time until Eyebrow Man becomes the next Prime Minister. God help us all. No scrutiny, mind. Back in 3.
we've got some breaking news that has just come in. talkSPORT have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/lager.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
The question my party is asking now is whether I am best placed to lead us into the next general election. I have heard the answer of my parliamentary party to that question, and I accept that answer with good grace. Every decision I've taken has been about putting the country I love first. That is why I will resign as leader of the Labour Party.
Well, you know what? In the end, he did do the right thing, and there were some achievements, and he's an honourable man, and he cared about public service. Guys, that's not what happened just now. In the last half an hour, Keir Starmer resigned, and he resigned because he was pushed. Most of his issues, most of the things which have damned him from, let's face it, within days, within weeks of him becoming Prime Minister back in July 2024, or of his own making. They were things he chose to do, cutting the winter fuel allowance, damning everybody who wanted to have a public inquiry on the grooming gangs as jumping onto the far-right bandwagon, the two-tier policing after the Southport riots. This man brought it on himself. He was not a good Prime Minister.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense. Let's be honest. But look, I mean, I don't really want to make light of it, but I am cheesed off, Julia, because what we promised in opposition was competence, and it's been anything but. I'm embarrassed. I'm really, truly, honestly, I am embarrassed, because I did think we would be competent. We've not been.
I've no idea whether there'll be a contest or a coronation. But what I do know is the British public have simply had enough of political parties chopping and changing their leaders at will. We vote for somebody in a general election to be our Prime Minister. We expect them to serve their term. And barring ill health or exceptional circumstances, what is going on here, frankly, is reminiscent of a banana republic that has totally devalued the very process of general elections and democracy. We at Reform demand a general election.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back or welcome along. Just gone 7 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom with Talk. The home, of course, of common sense, the home of you, the alarm clock. Brett, don't know what you're doing today, but as ever, your views on the day's news are what makes this station different. 0344 499 1000. We're not here to shock. We're here to tell you the news and hear your response to it. We say a very good morning once again to Matt Vickers, Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party. We've talked a lot in that first hour about Ann Widdecombe, and this is a story that will not go away. If you are waking up overnight, it's in the front of every single newspapers. Counter-terrorism police are now leading the inquiry into poor Ann's horrific murder last Wednesday at her home in Hayter in Devon. Widdecombe's murder was political. Nigel Farage has come under the cosh from many people for saying it was premeditated. Turns out he's been correct. Dan Hodges, particularly critical in the Mail, saying, you know, they're using this reform to deflect scrutiny of Nigel Farage and all that caused him to resign as an MP. Richard Tice was just on from Reform saying it's an incredibly difficult time. We're grateful for the support, but something needs to be done. The police have come under fire as well. Why did they initially say it's nothing political and then change their stance? Well, you said to me earlier, Matty, they're in a difficult position because we want more, but they could have handled it differently. We have to be able in this country to criticise the police without fearing that we're upset. They do an amazing job in many instances, but I think in this instance, Devon and Cornwall Police got it wrong.
Yeah. I think we
and
get
it's
to
okay
understand
to say that,
why on earth they would say that it wasn't politically motivated when it turns out there must be something that's made them think that, and if not, they're going to have to account for that. They're going to have to tell us why they thought it was right to rule something out that latterly sounds like it's turned out to be true. But then again, I will make the point that if you've got a vile, sick individual who is willing to go and murder an elderly lady in her own home, then there's probably more than one motivation to someone as sick and evil as that.
And Nigel Farage has been granted talks with the elite government security team. This is something that's been banging on forever. Last night it emerged that he had indeed been before offered security, but felt it was inadequate and had turned it down and thus had paid for his own. Lots on that. Andy, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. It's Andy from Hull. We're in strange, dark times, aren't we? You know, well, we've got hundreds of thousands of people prepared to go to places like Glastonbury, and they're happy to listen to some bloke stood at the front screaming death, death to the IDF, death, death. Who goes to a concert and wants to listen to people shouting about death? There were times gone by where you went to a concert because the sun was out and the beer was flowing and the music was good, and it was all about love and happiness. You know, that's what the 60s and Woodstock was all about. And then we've got even more people going out to these hate marches on the weekends, to free Palestine marches and from the river to the sea. Go and have a barbecue. The hatred is so intrinsic and runs so deep in them. We've got a big problem with that, Jeremy, and it ain't going to change anytime soon, unfortunately. I don't know the answer. I wish I did. Have a good day, mate. Keep your pecker up.
I wish I could at my age. Matty, this is really interesting. From a lady called Victoria, I'm going to say nothing more. Female politicians and security. She says, I am chair of my constituency branch of Reform UK and a newly elected county council. I've been asked by several of my members if I should put myself forward as a prospective parliamentary candidate. My answer is simply no, because I have a teenage daughter who's 15 today. I feel that apart from myself, I truly believe I could be putting her in danger, however much I would like to represent these people.
I mean, that's just...
How bad is that?
It's an awful, disgusting, vile situation. But it probably is a thing that people do have to make those... If you've got children,
but you shouldn't
you've got to worry
have
about
to.
those consequences.
You shouldn't have to. And I'm... Listen, I didn't get myself in a pocket yesterday, but I think Peter Blexley pointed out very well to me. Free speech means you should be able to stand in front of somebody you'd spend your life disagreeing with and go, right, that's your opinion and this is my opinion. But my take on that is, that's fine. I have this discussion with my daughter every time. I absolutely love the fact that you've got a different opinion. But what's changed with the left, Matty, and you have to accept this, is that anybody that doesn't share the hashtag be kind, woke, left-wing, Guardianista crap that comes out of their mouths, right? You have to be cancelled, trashed, called a fascist, a misogynistic, you're this, you're that. There's no balance between that. I really do feel that. So I was telling the story the other day of opening the door to a woman and being told, why are you doing that? Well, stuff it. I'll tell you why I'm going to keep doing that. I was telling this to Shabir Ahmed from talkSPORT this morning. Because that's what I was taught. That's respectful to a woman. If suddenly some 20-year-old thinks that I shouldn't be doing that big... Respect that I want to do it, and I'll respect that you don't want me to do it to you. But it's got to work both ways. Well, I think that's what we've lost.
It tells you everything, though, doesn't it? The left who tell you, there's some higher moral standing. They're the humane people who are nicer than nice, whiter than white. And people like the Conservatives or Reform are the nasty parties. Actually... Nobody embodied that better than Ann Widdecombe. Ann Widdecombe was willing to stand up there, regardless of whether you agreed or not. She'd give you her opinion on a situation. She was never personal in any way, shape or form. People were offended by it. You had the right to be offended by her if you want. She never went for anybody. No. She was always of that standard.
If we could get back to that, I mean, and I said this at the beginning of the show, if you read the amazing Andrew Pearce in the Mail and Ian Dale from LBC, both men in civil partnerships, both who told stories yesterday that brought a tear to my eye, right? Not that I do it on air, that they were saying, look, we're in civil partnerships and our husbands are best friends of Anne and are devastated. But she said, I'm not coming to your bloody wedding, I don't agree with it. They didn't hold it against her. That was her belief. So surely she's entitled, but it's gone beyond the pale. And if you're calling for somebody to suffer and be handcuffed to, but I don't want any, that's disgusting. Can we move? Listen, please get involved. 0344 499 1000. We'll keep you updated on that suspect who is being held by the anti-terror cops, the man from Rotherham. We'll keep you updated throughout the day here on Talk. Let's move to the countdown clock. Can we create a countdown clock in hours and seconds and minutes till Andy Burnham becomes Prime Minister? Because in a little over 144 hours, Andy Burnham will accede to the highest job in the land, and he hasn't had any scrutiny yet, right? So today he's going to address the Commons where he vows to be accountable. So he is going to be the Prime Minister.
Well, he's getting those keys, he's rocking up the street. He is going to be the Prime Minister all summer long.
Sorry, breaking news on Talk. We've had an email back straight away saying it'll take at least a week to make that clock graphically, so we're stuffed. So we'll just have to do it manually. Great. 17 emails, that's what happens. Go on.
Well, can we have one in time for England winning the World Cup? We've got the countdown.
No, that's that's Sunday. You've only got 6 days. No, you can't do it. No, you've got to send you have to send 17 emails to have a pee in this building. Don't be silly about that.
You know, the people I'm interviewing today...
Why are you waving at me?
Some of the people I'm interviewing today are techie. I'll see if one of them can do it for you.
Oh, brilliant.
We'll sort it out.
Looking for staff today. I'm thinking of abandoning it all and being Matt Vickers' spad.
We'd have some fun. We'd have some fun.
We get into trouble.
Lots of trouble. I think you're right. Look, it is absolutely nuts that Andy Burnham is going to become the Prime Minister of the UK without ever having faced the questions, without ever having had the scrutiny, without having to stand up there and take PMQs. It is balmy. Nobody knows what he stands for. Nobody knows what he believes in. I mean, the fact that he was brought in from outside, there are 400 and something Labour MPs. Not one of them put their head above the parapet to run against.
What does it say about the quality in their ranks?
It sends a message, but actually, if you look at what's happening in government, it probably does tell you a lot about the ranks.
So Burnham is going to speak to MPs today, but one of the things that the Tories, and I completely support this, by the way, were talking about over the weekend and yesterday was, because you're all going on your summer holiday, everybody has to have a holiday, but they're saying it should be extended so that he can take a question of Prime Minister's question times and have a bit of accountability. Because if this happens, and this is extraordinary, he will succeed Starmer on Monday. He's currently holed up in Portcullis House, apparently. Nice, just above as you drive along the Mall. He will become Prime Minister on the 20th of July. He won't have to go to the Commons, because you're on recess. He won't face the elected representatives of the people of this country until the beginning of September. That is fundamentally wrong in my mind. Fundamentally wrong.
The other bizarre thing about this is the guy is being made Prime Minister having not even faced an internal leadership election, but having been rejected by the Labour Party as leader twice.
Enough to Jeremy Corbyn.
And this time, none of them are good enough to stand against him. It's horrific, but nobody knows what he stands for. This country is facing huge challenges, whether that be... the Defence Secretary quit because we're not protecting our country. We're about to skip off into the sun with a guy who's become Prime Minister and nobody knows what he stands for. We were voting yesterday on legislation about our borders. It sounds like he's going to water that down and make Ireland...
You and I both know, whatever our political persuasion, there's only one thing that any Labour government in the end does, which is raise taxes. You cannot promise to increase defence and sort the NHS and education's going to be fine and we're going to devolve power to all these councils who will have the power to increase taxes. That's frightening. Just look how many are bankrupt and on their arse, right? And it's all, to me, and I've nothing... I don't know, because I can't criticise or compliment because I haven't got anything in front of me. It's all a bit too nice and a bit too bloody convenient. And then I get the story, ladies and gentlemen, Alarm Clock Brits, which is guaranteed to send me through the roof.
Well,
Ed Millipede, apparently, according to the Telegraph today, is now willing to approve North Sea drilling in return for being made the Chancellor. Is somebody seriously taking it out of me this morning?
Well, this is a guy... So it was so important that we stopped drilling in the North Sea.
Yeah.
It was so important that he bought into Dale Vance's agenda. It was so important that he was willing, despite promising to bring people's bills down, to see people's electricity bills go through the roof.
Absolutely.
Not just families struggling to pay them, businesses going to the wall because the energy prices are so high. He's willing to drive up emissions because we were transiting all this stuff to the country. He left us reliant upon hostile states for our energy supply. And, more importantly, he was willing to put 200,000 jobs on the line. But the minute it affects his career trajectory, oh, we'll just drop it. We'll just drop it. 200,000
your party won the Aberdeen South seat against every single odds, getting over 50% of the vote recently, simply by talking about what was once a hub of real industrial brilliance and employed people is a shell. People have lost their jobs and their homes and their families as a result of it. It's going to be really interesting. If you're prepared to listen, anything to get rid of net zero and as I keep saying, drill a resource that is ours rather than let somebody else, Norway, do it and then buy it off them. I wouldn't give Norway anything. Bye.
Well, you said one thing every Labour government does is put taxes up. There are two other things that every Labour government does. One is spend more on welfare on people who don't work, whilst those who are working are paying more in tax. But more importantly, every Labour government in history leaves office with unemployment higher than when they arrived. That is people's lives. It's all well and good messing around with taxes and numbers. People's inability to go out and get a job. 1 million young people in this country not in employment, education or training. That is vile. That is awful. We are handing to the next generation the lack of opportunities, the lack of ability to get on, earn a living and live your life. That is vile, horrible, evil situation.
Steve's in Cornwall. He's not your biggest fan. He said, I do enjoy your guest, Matt, but even with the sad events about Ann Widdecombe, using a football analogy, Matt is on a different team to Ann. Even under such sadness, I can sense him holding back, trying not to give any grace to the reform banner. Maybe this is what is wrong with society now. We try and do the right thing that benefits us rather than do the honest thing, Matt. Ann was a fantastic Conservative until the party walked away from her. Reform embraced her and her values. Just let your political wall down and be a good man rather than the right man.
I don't think there was any political war between me and Ann Widdecombe. I was very proud to have Ann Widdecombe as a friend.
I actually disagree. Steve, I appreciate you. I actually disagree. I actually think that Matt Vick, and I'm not just saying this because he's my mate, because he's come here and for a year he's had complete... I thought the way you spoke in the first hour about Ann Widdecombe was brilliant because you said it shouldn't be political, and that's me being... I'm defending you now.
I think there is a thing... Do you know what?
It's true.
This shouldn't be about politics. It shouldn't be about which team were they on. It shouldn't be about
you also
how it
didn't say reform. You also
issues.
Didn't do what Hodges and other people have said, which is you haven't said that reform have used it or made that accusation. What you said for 45 minutes was it should be above this, but sadly that isn't the case.
I mean, many people would say that Ann Widdecombe was a Conservative through and through.
Yeah.
And then there'd be the whole debate about what happened to the Conservative Party and whether actually she was more Conservative than some of the Conservatives we had going back. I don't think I was on any different team to Ann Widdecombe. I think she's an incredible person who contributed an incredible amount to public life. But she was bigger than a politician. She was bigger than a politician because she was an incredible character. And when I walked around my constituency at the weekend and people were talking to me about her, some of those people were completely disengaged in politics. They'd seen her on Strictly. They'd seen her just come on the news and say what she had to say and what she thought. And she was up front and people loved her for it. And the world is a much sadder place without Ann Widdecombe.
Right, is this Angry Rob, is it? Right, you stand by. Angry Rob, good morning.
Morning, Jez. Rob on his way to work. Ann Widdecombe, rest in peace. God bless her. A decent person, decent politician, woman of conviction. I hope she rests in peace. As for the media, the social media that are bad-mouthing her, as for the politicians that are having a go at Farage for laying a reef and everybody else is having a go at him for laying a reef with the party, because she was a friend and colleague. That's what she was to them. She was a friend and colleague. She wasn't, this wasn't a political thing. When you have a relative that dies or a close friend that dies, what do? You go and pay your respects. But no, not in left-wing land. No, in the eyes of the left waffer, guess what? You're some sort of fascist and you try to make an opportunity out of some poor person's death. That's how sick in the head they are. That's how twisted their thinking is. I tell you what, mate, the left, I hope you carry on as you are, because one day you're going to realise that all along, all the hate, all the bile, all the filth, all the scum from your side of the net.
The greatest thing about that tweet is, and we should be using this regularly, the left waffer. The Luftwaffe. That, of course, was the Luftwaffe, which was... I did a dissertation on the Luftwaffe, which was the German Air Force in the Second World War. But from now on, the left are called the
We've made a note.
Luftwaffe, we've made a note. Can I just, before you go, and you're brilliant, we love having you on, 6 days till Burnham becomes Prime Minister. The transition's causing great discussion, because tomorrow, of course, England taking on Argentina... hands off the Falklands. Honestly, I'm not interested in this debate. This is ludicrous. We're now the Argentinians are going, it's ours, Malvinas, and all that. There's a meme going round of Harry Kane stood with Lionel Messi and the referee's Margaret Thatcher, which is quite interesting. Listen, it's a game of football. Argentinian foreign minister ramps up tensions. We're going to beat Argentina, aren't we?
Well, we won the war, we won the referendum, and we are going to win the match. We've got to go out there and beat them. We've got to go out there and beat them.
I think we will beat them. I think they're a one-man team. It depends if the referee's bent or not. But here's the bit I want to talk about. If we do get through the final, it's my perfect Sunday. It's the final round of the Open Championship from Royal Birkdale, followed by the World Cup. But Keir Starmer, who seems to have had a personality bypass, because overnight I read suddenly there are flags of St George hanging from every window of indeed Downing Street. Overnight we hear I'm going to ban the IRG, the independent with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Really? We've been on about this. He's apparently, I don't blame him actually, I've never stuck up for Keir Starmer. He's going to jump on a plane if we make it to the World Cup final, right? I'm still the Prime Minister of the morning, Burnham. You can shove it with the sun don't shine. I'm going to fly to America. I'm going to watch the game. I'm going to enjoy it, and then I'm going to come back, resign in the King, and bugger off with my wife on holiday. Because Burnham, essentially, is the leader of the Labour Party from Friday, but not the Prime Minister till Monday.
It's quite the send-off. If you're going to be Prime Minister of the UK and you're going to have some sort of send-off, it will be watching England win the World Cup.
Yeah.
I don't think he deserves it by any stretch of the imagination.
With a German as the manager.
It's pretty incredible.
Do you think England will win on tomorrow? Where would you be watching it? Because you're upset about the cost of pints in London, aren't you?
I just think at the weekend, because it was at the weekend, they got to watch it at home, got to watch it in the constituency, got cheaper pints, got friendly people. I even got a seat. Down here, you've got to book a table about a week in advance, and I haven't booked one. It's tomorrow, so I'm probably not going to get a seat.
Oh.
And it's not quite the same, and the pints are more expensive.
Well, you come to my house if you want. I'm
Party
watching
hard,
it.
right, party hard.
Big video type television. Beer's free. It's not
Beer's free.
Beer's free in my house.
I'll be there.
Thought you would be. Anything for a free night out. 0344 499 1000. Matty, thank you very, very much indeed. Matt Vickers, Richard Tice in the first hour and 20 minutes. If you want to be on, that is the number. 0344 499 1000. You text to 87222. And one of the most prominent Tory voices, former Conservative Party leader Ian Duncan Smith, is next. Boz, good morning.
Burnham going to address the Commons, is he? Right, OK, he's going to promise this and that and then slip off for 7 weeks holiday, probably getting his eyelashes and eyebrows done ready for September's party conference.
So what do you think of Reform today admitting that they're now paying for 24-hour security for their MPs and high-profile people because of their fear after what's happened to Anne?
I think it is overblown, and I think you can understand why anyone would be afraid. I certainly had death threats during my time as MP for
Overblown? How can it be overblown?
Well, because at the moment we think the police are telling us that there's no reason to think there was a political motive behind the killing of Ann Widdecombe. Members of Parliament serve.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to 7:25. My father-in-law is a massive England football fan. Morning, Rob. He says, Jez, tomorrow will definitely depend on whether the referee is... I can't use that word. We'll say biased. It's massively important that the referee is straight down the line. But of course, we should remember that Argentina are a one-man team, really. Lionel Messi just happens to be the best player in the world. Are we a one-man team? Probably a two-man team. Anyway, it's going to be an amazing night. We'll keep our fingers crossed. Morning to Simon. He says, Jez, I said this yesterday and I will keep on saying it. It's not about giving our politicians security. It's about stopping the lowlife who want to attack our politicians and using a very, very, very big sledgehammer to crack a very vile, disgusting section of society. They need to know that the vile stuff they spread on the internet and share amongst themselves is no longer acceptable, and they need to be punished, and punished incredibly hard. Anyone who is chanting about violence to others because of their political views needs to be stopped, and stopped properly. We all have a right to an opinion, and everybody has a right to be listened to, despite which side of the political fence they sit on. I completely agree. Jez, says Dave in Cheshire, my respect for Dan Hodges has dropped like a very heavy brick. I thought he was better than his recent tweets. This is Dan Hodges' tweet. He said he's criticising reform. He's every right to do that. Views on this show, sorry to be a stuck record, but as I said, reform and Nigel Farage's priority in all of this, in my mind, is Nigel Farage. I've been saying reform are attempting to deflect from scrutiny of him. They've been hysterically denying it. So let's test. I predict, says Dan Hodges, they will link today's statement about anti-terror police now leading the investigation with Farage's £5 million donation. Amongst everything that's happened this week with Ann Widdecombe and the talk of a formidable politician whose views are their views, but their behaviour sort of embodies what being a parliamentarian is all about, I'd say my next guest is up there on the same pedestal, former Conservative Party leader. Good morning to Sir Ian Duncan-Smith. How are you, Ian?
Yeah, good morning. Very good, thanks, yeah.
Horrible, horrible week for many. You will have known Ann Widdecombe, I'm sure, closely, and I think the fallout on so many levels is both unfortunate, but some of it is good to be discussing. Just briefly, we haven't spoken since. What are your memories yourself personally of Ann Widdecombe?
Well, Ann was a force of nature. There's no way of putting it any other different. She, whether you believe she was right or wrong, she engaged every debate at pretty much the same speed. She selected the sixth gear and went for it. And she could be good fun too. She had a good, dry sense of humour. She didn't take herself so seriously that she couldn't laugh occasionally or parody herself, as you saw on the Celebrity Dancing programme and also Big Brother House, where she was able to show another side of herself. So Ann was, in many senses, a very strong and powerful politician. We crossed swords on a number of occasions. A point I made in the House was that she wasn't always so strong on Europe, because I remember being chastised by her when I was a new boy and she was in government, and she chastising me for not supporting the government's terrible Maastricht deal and being more pro-EU. So there was a time when she wasn't in quite the same political position, but, the beauty of it was she shows that if the facts change, you change, and that was important, and she was powerful in that argument. So I have to say, we will miss her enormously. I will certainly miss her personally, because I got to know her pretty well. And the tragedy is that people think that democracy allows them to go and murder people they disagree with, or scream at them on the internet, or call them names. I can't remember who it was on the internet that came up and said, I hope that when she died it was painful and it was long.
This was Heather Herbert, an ex-Labour candidate who now works in a computer department of Aberdeen University, who said, I hope she was handcuffed to the bed and screamed in agony whilst being bludgeoned. Yeah. Now, I want to ask you about this because you've years of experience, and I didn't get stuck yesterday because I believe in free speech, but I believe there's a line, and I believe this rather encompasses what left activism, as I call it, is all about. I tried to say earlier, I think different opinions are great, Ian, but there are certain sections, many on the left, there will be some on the far right as well, but many on the left who, you know, they go on about, you know, be kind, let's talk about equality and diversity, and some of the vile stuff that comes out of their mouths. All of us want a free press. How do we deal with this? Because it's completely and utterly repugnant in my mind.
Well, first of all, I am a huge believer in the right to speak your mind in free speech. It is an individual right which is very British. It was bound into English common law 1,000 years ago, and it still should remain. But there is a thin line between free speech and proper debate and threatening, angry discourse that leaves people hurt, damaged unnecessarily, or even physically killed or hurt. So my point is, freedom of speech does have limitations, not the sort of limitations we see on those who patrol the internet for anybody that criticizes trans or whatever it happens to be. That's not holding out for free speech. What we want is those who espouse violence, those who believe in terrorism, those who support terrorists, and we can say some of these marches that have been taking place over the last year or two have been, I think, terrible, because they've whipped up hatred. They've called for the death of, for example, Jews, or an end to the state of Israel. Whether you believe it or not, that has no place in political discourse. So that's different from freedom of speech. That's calling for action to take place that will damage, hurt, or even kill people. Now,
well, that's the debate about this Heather Herbert. I don't know whether, I mean, I don't know whether to call him or her. I call her Water. They are saying there can be no action because that was an opinion, right? It wasn't a call for... I had this explained to me yesterday. I mean, Lucy Connolly made an accusation which was fundamentally wrong, but she went to jail for 3 years. But when you're saying about a 78-year-old lady who was bludgeoned to death in her own home, I hope it was painful and you should have been tied to a bed, that has no place in a civilised society, does it? What can be done under the auspices of free speech to deal with, I'm sorry, scum like that? Because I think it's outrageous. Outrageous.
Well, again, she always has the right to speak, but I think it's important for people like that to recognise if you express views in which you extol the virtues of someone being murdered painfully, then that is beyond just an opinion, I think. It's becoming an incitement to violence. Now, that's not to try to shut down on free speech, but what I would say to her and others, I don't know what it is that's wrong with the left at the moment, but the left are the ones that do all the huge personal abuse of each other in legitimate politics. After all, lots of Labour MPs called Conservatives Tory scum. And I was attacked on the streets, you know, hounded and attacked. I don't claim a problem over it. It's up to the people that do it, but the police wanted to stop it. All these sort of things are entering the discourse in politics today. They were around in the 17th century, but we've sort of moved on since then. So we need to be able to understand that by all means disagree, and disagree very angrily sometimes, with those who say things and you don't like them, but don't call on them personally to be attacked or to denigrate the idea that they have a right themselves to speak their own minds. And that's where we've lost that balance of reality.
I couldn't agree more. So much I want to ask you about. Overnight, Devon and Cornwall Police letting us know that the anti-terror cop division has now taken over the Ann Widdecombe murder investigation. And I think rightly, you might disagree. We're always keen to support the police, and quite rightly so. But Devon and Cornwall police have been accused this morning of breaking the golden rule of live inquiries by initially insisting that Ann's killing had not been politically motivated. That was a huge mistake. Farage took a lot of heat for saying it's premeditated. You'll have a view on that. Truth is, he was right and they were wrong again.
Well, I spent the time from Friday onwards saying to people, let the police do their job and wait and see what comes up, rather than speculating, because the more we speculate, the more difficult sometimes it gets for police to do their job. I did question why the police came out with certain statements during the course of that investigation, which didn't seem to me to be founded in fact. So, for example, they were talking about it not being political murder, not being a terrorist murder. We don't know, and they didn't know, I don't think.
Do you think that's based on Southport and the pressure on the police to give us more? Because you'll tell me I'm conspiratorial, but I am utterly convinced with Southport that they knew the government about Rudabikana. I think that they knew that he wasn't an illegal migrant. They allowed this febrile atmosphere to build on social media. People took to the streets. Out came Starmer and said everybody in the streets is far right, and arrested and jailed everybody, and sort of, you know, raised it and went, that's me being strong. I want information from the police, but I would have thought a better approach would have been, look, this is a live investigation. We have a suspect. We can say no more. We will update you as and when. But it struck me, I mean, I'll keep saying it, people don't agree. It was white British. OK, it turned out to be a white British man twice. Then they said it's not politically motivated. It's turned out to be politically motivated. I think I'm not sure they could be said to be handling the communications particularly effectively early doors at all, to be honest.
Well, I agree with you, and I think that the biggest problem was to come out making these statements about what they believe or might not believe. And I said if they call for no speculation, then I must say the one concern I had was that the police themselves appeared to be speculating, and I don't think it was necessary. And I don't think it's necessary for the public to have huge amounts of information during an investigation.
No, I agree.
So don't dip your toe in the water and then complain when others do the same. So the answer to the police was, and I also thought the other bit of the policing statements was really peculiar when I think the Chief Constable, Devon and Cornwall, said this is policing at its finest.
Yeah, I know. I read that.
And I thought, why do you have to say any of that? Wait until the outcome. Then, if they've done really well, by all means say well done. But don't do it halfway or even a quarter of the way in. And so now what we're seeing is I think the terrorist police have actually stepped in because they're worried about the nature of the way this has ebbed and flowed with regard to information. And I think they've decided they're taking this over because there is clearly, you cannot say that there is no evidence or is no reasonable evidence.
I'm so with you. Why did Devon and Cornwall say that before they knew? The other thing that's come out of this, Ian, and because you've been around Parliament for years, and you just said it, that you were abused when you walked out or that's happened to you, is all about security. There was a huge debate about Nigel Farage and the loan and security. He then resigns his seat. That's going to happen. Yesterday, Farage was granted talks with an elite government security team. It emerged that he'd refused taxpayer-funded security initially because he felt it was inadequate, but he's pleased about the fact that he's now having that conversation. Dan Hodges has been tweeting, and I've read this many times this morning. He says that Reform are attempting to deflect from scrutiny of Farage. They've been hysterically denying it, so let's test. I predict they will try to link today's statement about anti-terror police now leading the investigation with Farage's 5 million. Basically, Dan Hodges is saying, Reform and Farage are using this as a deflection tactic. What's your take?
Well, I can't get in the head of others like Nigel Farage. What I would say to everybody, the issue about the 5 million, as I understand it, is not specifically about what it was used for or whether he should have got it. The real issue is, why didn't he declare it? Because he was advised right at the beginning, as everybody is, that if you have sums of money before you become a member of Parliament, you should declare those monies so as to appear not to be influenced by anybody else or any other company. And that is advice that is given to you straight away. And I would genuinely say that the issue is about whether he should have done and why didn't he, if he should have done, not about the money or about the security. That is a separate issue, and that's not what's on trial here or being judged or being investigated. It's simply on the basis that the rules are very clear, because they want everybody to appear quite clearly that they're not overly influenced by money from individuals or from companies.
And this is on
That
the back of
straightforward.
cash for questions, Ian, right?
Yeah. I mean, that goes right back to when we had to reform all of this. And it's not perfect. And I think sometimes the Parliament steps in sometimes too heavily handed, and it isn't a court of law. So if you have witnesses, they don't have to even talk to them. Whereas in the court of law, they would have to take evidence from them. Otherwise, their evidence would appear as accepted by the courts. But that doesn't happen in this investigation. So there's lots of question marks about it at times. But the reality is very simply to get to the bottom of should he have declared this, and if not, why not? And that's all that this is about. But so I don't know if running around the place holding a by-election has anything to do with that very simple point. And
his argument was, of course, that the Labour Party have made it abundantly clear this could take up to a year, and the pile-on was just going to continue and get away from real issues. So whether it's a political decision or not, I mean, I don't like the fact, and, you know, I'm being straight, I don't like the fact that the Standards Committee is made up of 4 Labour MPs, 1 Tory and 1 Liberal Democrat. And I know Reform have only got 5 MPs, but not a Reform member. They know what's going to happen. And I'm not here to debate what's right or wrong. I'll tell you what I would like to ask you, though, and you know, there now is a bigger question as to not just Nigel Farage, whether the government or taxpayers should pay for enhanced security for all MPs. When you think Joe Cox, when you think David Amess, when you think Ann Widdecombe, and you've been in Parliament many, many years, is that something you'd support?
I turned down extra security, when I was leader of the Conservative Party, because I really didn't want to have people hanging around, getting between me and my constituents. I think one of the great things about our parliamentary system is that we get elected by constituencies, and therefore by people who live in those constituencies. And I go talk to people all the time. We have coffee mornings, all sorts of things, where you talk to them, listen to them, find out what's going on. What I'm always worried about is we end up having security around us that we can no longer really engage with people without them feeling worried or concerned, because you seem to have this huge entourage around you. Now,
do you fear, are there moments when you fear that you could be attacked, or have you done it so long that that's just water off a duck's back?
Well, you do think about, I'm careful to watch people or to check people who want to come into surgeries. We have security for surgeries. The moments when you're in a fixed place, when people will know that's the time when you probably need some security just in case they come. But generally, what I wouldn't like to see is MPs with security people following them around all over the constituency, because that in itself sort of cuts across what I think our democracy is about. Yeah. Our democracy is, I think, a very delicate flower, which it may have problems at times, but at the end of it all, we have to go back to our constituencies, talk to people, because they're the ones that put us here. And if we don't do that, the chances are they won't put us here any longer. So I don't want to end up like one of these foreign governments and where the politicians get driven around in smart cars the whole time, trying to avoid any kind of personal scrutiny. I don't want that. I want us to be as we are, very heavily and closely linked to our constituents at all times.
Couldn't agree more. One final question, my friend. You brought us luck last week by saying that England were going to win. You actually predicted the 2-1 score. I've got it on tape. The Argentinian foreign minister has overnight ramped up tensions and said, you know, the Malvinas, and it's all going to be about the Falklands. Tomorrow night, semi-final of the World Cup, England-Argentina. I know Mr. Surian will be watching with a pint in his hand. We'll have a prediction from you. Are we going to the final?
I believe the English team is probably the best team that I've seen to come forward in terms of a team, not as individuals particularly, since '66. and 70 when they had a really good team. I think this has got real reservoirs of guts, determination, which is what's required. They may not be the most talented team in the game, but by God, they have the toughest will to win. If they bring that to the game tomorrow, then they will beat Argentina without question.
Good man. It's always an absolute pleasure to have you on The Voice of Reason. Thank you so much indeed. Sir Ian Duncan Smith, former Conservative Party leader. 18 minutes to 8 o'clock. We're live across the UK with Talk Breakfast. Colin, good morning.
Morning, Jez. Colin here, tool driver from Blackburn. Just going out abroad again. Just about to get on the boat to Dover on Margaret Watch again. The other point, Burnham. Oh, what? He's going to knacker the country even more. And regarding Ann Widdecombe, what a darling. Absolute angel. Says what she says and meant everything she said. Well, good luck to her. Rest in peace, darling. All the best, Jez. Ta-ra.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. 7:45. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Jeremy Kyle on Talk Breakfast, where your views on the day news are welcome all the time. 0344 499 1000. If you're just tuning in, of course, the main news story, Ann Widdecombe's horrific murder last Wednesday. The Times reporting today. Front page of the Times, front page of the Mail, front page of most newspapers. Ann Widdecombe's murder case has been taken over by the terror police. They believe it now to be politically motivated. I have to say that's what Farage said. But Devon and Cornwall police are coming under real pressure this morning. They're being accused of breaking the golden rule of inquiries. They said it was not anything to do with political motivation. They've ended up with egg on their face. Not sure what's going on. Many people are saying, what is going on? This is such a ludicrously sad and outrageous story. The suspect, have to make that point, no charges at this stage. The suspect, the man from Rotherham, is with counter-terrorism police as we speak, and we will keep you updated on Talk throughout the day. It's led to so many questions about security. Nigel Farage yesterday granted talks with an elite government security team, something he's been harbouring. He didn't like the offers before, thought it was inadequate. Your thoughts on that? It's really interesting. Lots of people are saying that the left's response to Ann Widdecombe is vile and repugnant, which for many it is. Others are saying politicians need security, or why would you even become a politician? I think that's true. And the complete part of all of this that we're not even talking about enough is that in 6 days, Andy Burnham will be the new Prime Minister. And the thing that sent me right through the ceiling this morning is that Ed Miliband, it is being reported, is prepared to start drilling again in the North Sea and screw net zero if you make me Chancellor of the Exchequer. How bad is that? How bad is that? So everything you've got and everything you've put us through and every pound you've spent making sure our energy bills go through the bloody roof don't matter as much as you getting into number 11 Downing Street. Absolutely outrageous. Dan Hodges has been taking some heat from you guys this morning. Terry says, I'm hoping... No, he says, will Kyle have Hodges back on his show? Absolutely. Why would I not? So I can ask him about this tweet. He says, I've been saying Reform are attempting to deflect from scrutiny of Nigel Farage. They've been hysterically denying it. So let's test. I predict, says Dan Hodges, they will link today's statement about anti-terror police now leading the investigation with Farage's $5 million donation. We had Richard Tice on the show. We'll play that interview later. It was a really interesting one. Right now, though, I want to talk about the police. I want to talk about the whole Devon and Cornwall. I know people who will say, don't criticise the police. No, I will criticise the police if the police have got something wrong. I'm not going to pile on just because there's been... I want to try and understand. Let's speak to retired Scotland Yard detective, great friend of this station, good man as well. Mike Neville, good morning. Welcome to Breakfast.
Good morning, Jeremy.
So, just let me, from a listener's and a layman's point of view, give you this. So after Southport, I am convinced that the government and the police knew more about Rudabikana, didn't let it out because the febrile response on social media that grew and grew and led to those appalling riots, led to them, it enabled Starmer to arrest these people, stand there and go, they're all far-right thugs, I'm a strong man, right? The response from many people was the police need to be more transparent. The first minute, people don't agree with me here, that's fine. First minute I heard this story yesterday, or whatever it was, the police. It's a white British male, sort of raised my eyebrow, nothing to do with political, no political motivation. Why Mike Neville, a Devon and Cornwall police saying that, where 4 days later the whole case has been taken over by anti-terror cops?
Well, Jeremy, let me divide the police into two here. I think the actual detectives who investigated the case and have made an arrest within, literally hours, and they've got seemingly a suspect who's very viable in custody. Those detectives and officers involved in that case, reviewing all that CCTV, they have done a good job. So well done, the Devon and Cornwall CID and the officers there. The ones who have made a mess of this, have eroded trust and confidence in the police, are the senior officers, and it's all the time. And like you say, so people, they were right to say, in a sense, it was a white Britain. They knew from the start, I think they've got CCTV evidence, and they knew that from the start. The first thing with this is, of course, people say, how does it take a couple of hours for Devon and Cornwall to say it's a white man? We had the same with Merseyside Police with that terrible, wicked driving in the Victory Parade, white man from Liverpool. And then it took the British Transport Police 18 hours to tell us it was a black man on the Huntingdon train stabbings. And all the time people think, how does it take 1 hour for one and nearly a day for the other? And that is a big criticism as well. And then you have the sort of press office senior officers who come out and say, we don't know the motive, but we don't think it's political. Well,
Don't think.
How do those two things work together? Just say we don't know. They're almost straight away, they seem to be, we've got to say it's a white bloke and he's just randomly driven, he's randomly driven to this famous old lady's house and killed her for no good reason. Oh, it's a burglary gone wrong. Well, most burglars don't attack anybody, they run away. So the whole thing was nonsense. Why not just say we don't know? Because until you've searched his house fully, until you've examined every digital device, the computers and phones, you won't know a motive, because most of these suspects will sit in custody in the interview and say no comment. And digital forensics, things like examining a computer, take time, especially if the suspect will not tell you the passwords. So why did they make those statements? They just made themselves look stupid, and they made the accusations of two-tier policing too easy to throw at them.
I mean, I completely agree, because the question is how or why, in the name of God, could they get this so wrong? Are they terrified and handicapped by this fear of not giving out enough or not giving enough, and they find themselves stuck between the devil and the deep blue sea? I don't know. But, we think it's not politically motivated. Don't say anything unless you've got definitive proof, man.
I think what they really feared of is something that nearly every senior officer has been brought up in the same way. They're far more comfortable reading The Guardian and listening to the news on BBC than reading the Daily Mail and listening to talkTV. It's their mindset. They talk about diversity. They have no diversity of thought. All the senior officers will sit in a room and say, do you know what? Oh, it's a white bloke. Oh, thank God for that. It's a white guy, and we can say that straight away. And it's a right-wing politician who's been killed. Well, they're not really really victims out of the right wing. So the whole mindset is driven by, and no one's in the room saying, oh, stop, this is all nonsense, because all the people in the room think the same way. And then you end up with this business where they're telling the emperor he's wearing a fine set of clothes, and there's no one like me or you in the room saying, do you know what, he's wearing nothing, you're being stupid, look again. But they don't.
Is there a lack of common sense in our police forces, governed, it seems, by those up high nowadays, or is it an ideology, Mikey?
It's an ideology, Jerry. It's an ideology where everybody thinks the same way, has the same views. So they will look at it. If somebody black involved, that must mean they're a victim. If they're a Muslim involved, they must mean that they're a victim. If they're a white straight man, they must be a villain. And you saw this played out with the Henry Novak, the training that those officers got who did those awful things at the scene when Henry died, that wasn't the officers, they're just the puppets in the show. It was the people behind it who'd driven that ideology. And we really must get rid of this, because British policing was the best in the world. And this left-wing ideology over the last couple of decades has absolutely devastated that. We were told when I was in the police, the more woke we are, the more the community will trust us. But you know what? That's utter rubbish, isn't it? Because the more woke they've got this way, the more trust and confidence has gone down that way. So it needs to stop, and stop now.
Mikey, I've got a voice note for you I needed to play to you as well. T, good morning.
Hey Jazz, it's T from Worcestershire. I just wanted to come on and say, are we not just watching our police force become a giant media management company rather than out there on the front lines? And like, don't get me wrong, I know there are police out there that do serve in the way of balance and kind, but visually, optically, over the last few months, what we have seen is stood in front of us saying nothing to see. Move along. They are trying to manage the people rather than protect the people. That's how it feels. The optics on this since day one, everybody looked on and knew there was more to this than a random attack so many miles away. But they stood there yet again to say no. No, it's nothing to see here. Then 24 hours later to come out and say the words we all knew all along. And we're meant to have faith in that. We're meant to have trust in that, with the relationship between the police and the people so highly fraught. Yet they choose to manage us instead of get justice for us.
Powerful words, but you can't disagree, can you, Mike Neville?
Not at all, because it's just exactly what she said. As I said, the operational officers have done a good job here. It's those senior officers who try and manage. I wonder what this involvement of the government nudge unit has had in this as well. I'm sure as soon as it happened, somebody from Downing Street was on the phone to the police, just like they put pressure on the families, like Henry Novak's family and other families. Oh, don't say this, don't say that, because you'll cause trouble. And it is this sort of management. And when they say to us, don't speculate, well, that's just a human nature, isn't it? Because if one old lady gets killed, that means, well, do you know what? Is any of my relatives at risk? We've got to, you know, we can't just think, oh, thank you, police officers, you've fed us as much as we're allowed to have, and we're all going to sit here in silence and not say anything. The speculation doesn't harm the investigation or anything like that. And what gets worse is when they try and paint a picture that there's nothing to see here, like the lady said, when there obviously is something to see here. A famous person who was a right-wing MP gets killed, brutally slain in their own home. People are going to start asking, why did this happen? And there's nothing wrong with them asking why did this happen.
I mean, I get the dichotomy between letting people know and keeping quiet, but it's what you say, and you would think, wouldn't you?
If you don't know, say so. If you don't know, say we don't know.
Yeah, we're investigating. We don't know. We're not going to make any presumptions. Just very quickly, I only got a minute. One of the arguments that's come out of all of this is security for politicians. Can you see that happening in the world we seem to be headed towards? Joe Cox, David Amis, Ann Widdecombe. Can you see there being a need for enhanced security around all elected MPs?
well, it would seem to be former MPs as well. I think it's got to be carefully judged who gets them, but there's certainly certain types of MPs who are more at risk than others. If you've got a thin spread of something, you've got to give more to the people most at risk. But there needs to be proper risk assessments made, and the elected representatives looked after, because we cannot have it where people can die because they're representing the people. That's not right.
Just very quickly, 30 seconds. He's still a suspect, no charges. What's the timeline? 24 hours or?
No. So if it was a murder case, they have 96 hours or 4 days from the point of arrest. Well, that would have been 4 days from Saturday evening. No, it's a terrorism offence. They've got 14 days to investigate before charge. So a lot more. So it could go on in silence for some time, Jeremy.
Mike, always great to have you on, mate. Really, really good insight. Thank you, Mike Neville, retired Scotland Yard Chief Detective. Almost 8. This is Talk Breakfast.
Is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
For over 20 years now, I have been subject to constant demonisation by the press. For daring to be outside the consensual view on many issues, I've been attacked again and again. And I am the most physically and verbally attacked public figure or politician of modern times. Yes, you will know of some of the incidents: milkshakes thrown in my face, placards bashed over my head. But let me promise you, you only know about a fraction of the number of times that I've been assaulted. It would seem from the last couple of years, from the way I've been treated, that the press would rather our members of Parliament had no assets and no wealth at all. They seem to fundamentally object to any MP that has outside income. Indeed, they view those that have continuing business interests with severe scepticism. Making money is not a crime. Let me be absolutely clear. After the furore and the media pile-on, well, not just the media, the other political parties too, let me be absolutely clear. I have done nothing wrong. I have not broken the law in any way at all. I have not misused public money. And you know, for the first 2 years of being an MP, my personal MP expenses are zero. I've thought about it hard, and I've decided today I will resign as a Member of Parliament for Clacton-on-Sea, thereby forcing a by-election, which would happen, I hope, in short order. No, I've decided that the people of Clacton should be the judges of my actions. this will be a people versus the establishment by-election. It's a chance to stick two fingers up to the entire establishment, to frankly tell them where to go. And that is why I will be putting my name forward to stand in this by-election. I will fight to win. I will fight to continue the political revolution that reform has started. And I would say this to you, the voters of Clacton: if I win, you win. Because if I lose, they win. And we will never, with the two old parties, get the type of fundamental change that we need to fix.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back or welcome along. This is JK on Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense, the home of you, the alarm clock Brits. Thanks for tuning in on this Tuesday. So much to talk about. 0344 499 1000, the only number you need in town. You can text 87222. It's still all about the Ann Widdecombe horrific murder. Every single major newspaper, the Times, the Mail, this morning, the front page reading, Widdecombe's murder was political terror. That is what it's saying. Front page of the Sun, Ann Copp's terror probe. The Devon and Cornwall police, they are coming under fire, and I think quite rightly so. You've heard from Ian Duncan Smith, you've heard from Mike Neville there. So many guests lined up today. This is a police force that 4 days ago, when the tragedy of Ann's situation emerged and it was murder, they said straight away, it is not politically motivated. We think it's not. Well, it is. It is definitely politically motivated. Nigel Farage said it was premeditated and got slaughtered. The truth of the matter is, there is obviously more to this story. Now, the man is a suspect, just a suspect. No charges have been made. It was the man that was arrested from Rotherham, 270 miles away. You've seen the footage of him getting into car with that alleged weapon. So much has been said about the miles and the drive and him as a person. He's been rearrested. The terror cops, the anti-terror cops have taken over the inquiry. But it is, for many people, you know, a question that won't go away. What the hell is going on? We just heard from Mike Neville, who said that, and I didn't know this, is a really interesting point, because it's a terror investigation, he could be held for 14 days. Let's just bear that in mind, 14 days. So I don't know as and when we'll hear anything about this, but one thing is for sure, the ramifications and the response to all of this has been huge, as it would be. A formidable, wonderful lady who was very much your conviction politician that we don't have anymore. We've got sort of men and women who... what would the focus group say? What would happen if blah, blah, blah? Ann Widdecombe believed in what Ann Widdecombe believed in, and she was very strong in that. And for some people, they loved her for it. For others, they didn't like it at all. But she was a person who embodied, for me, what politicians used to be all about. Morning, George.
Morning, Jeremy. Hope you're having a good show. Ari Ann Widdecombe, really, really sad news. Was a lovely lady. I think that the government, on all parties, should actually debate this before the summer recess and actually put forward a motion that anyone found guilty of attacking a politician should be met with the highest possible prison sentence, maybe 35 years, as a deterrent. I know it probably won't deter all of the nutters out there, but I think if that was put forward, or maybe even life, probably even better. Anyway, have a great show. George from Leicester. Cheers, buddy.
The problem after all of this story has started is that, quite rightly, we're now talking about security for politicians. Nigel Farage yesterday granted by the Home Office an interview with the elite government security team. Sia Youssef saying not enough is being done. Reform are supposed to be funding out of their own pockets security for their own MPs. One asks how long that's going to last, because the cost is absolutely monumental. There are other people. I mean, there was a Labour safeguarding minister, Natalie Fleet, yesterday, saying that reform of faux outrage. They're using this. Dan Hodges from the Mail has said, I've been saying reform are attempting to deflect from the scrutiny of Nigel Farage for ages. They've been hysterically denying it. So let's test. I predict they will try and link today's statement about anti-terror police now leading the investigation with Farage's $5 million. Whatever the truth, this is a story that is not going away. We add to that Burnham's going to be Prime Minister in 6 days, and we're going to beat the Falklands. No, brilliant. We're going to beat Argentina. Do you know what? You know, we're going to beat Argentina. We've shown some success against them in the past. Don't know where the Falklands analogy came from. Probably the Argentinian foreign minister overnight ramping up tensions, saying Malvinas and all that. It's a game of football, for Christ's sake. Let's stick to it. Here's a man who's embraced social media, and I don't really do a lot of social media, but I noticed his latest offering was, I'm going to do a post in a T-shirt. All seems very dodgy. Nigel Evans, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons. Good morning, sir. What are you doing? Posts in a T-shirt, stood outside the Commons like some sort of strange individual. What's all that about?
Well, I just thought that if Andy Burnham can do it, I can do it. I mean, he donned a T-shirt and then he becomes Prime Minister.
Yeah, but it was black, the eyebrows are perfectly manicured, yours was pale blue and you got a couple of bushy bits on top, so it's not going to work the same, is it, Evans? You know what I'm saying?
I know. It's I'm going to have to try harder, but my goodness me, do you know, when you try and explain, I've just come back from the United States of America where I actually met Nigel Farage out there during the Independence Day stuff.
Yeah.
And trying to explain to Americans what is going on in the United Kingdom as far as the transference of power, this very British coup, is almost impossible to explain it to them. And I'm explaining it to people who are politically interested. I mean, but we are seeing the transference of power in the United Kingdom to a man who was not a member of Parliament at the time of the last general election, had nothing to do with a manifesto whatsoever, and yet on Friday he becomes Prime Minister. Technically, Jeremy, he's already got the votes to be Prime Minister now. He has not, I think it's today he's making his maiden speech in the House of Commons on the Hillsborough stuff, the legislation that's been going through there. And yet he's been not accountable to the media, to the House of Commons, to the Leader of the Opposition. I mean, tomorrow we've got Prime Minister's questions. Really, shouldn't Keir Starmer just give way and allow Andy Burnham the opportunity to be grilled within the House of Commons?
There's so much I want to ask you about, because the first point is, which is really interesting, is that he becomes the Labour Party leader on Friday, but he doesn't become the Prime Minister till Monday. And Starmer, who seems to have done a 180, by the way, I don't know if you know this, Starmer overnight, we've got St George's flags flying from every bloody window in number 10 now. That wasn't happening. Have you not seen it? Last night he decided to accept that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is a proscribed terrorist organisation. We spent 2 years having that debate. I think he's having a breakdown of reality. He said, I'm the Prime Minister till Monday. I'm jumping on plane if England make it to World Cup final. I'm going, then I'm going to get the red eye back. I'm going to shake the hands of the King, say thank you very much indeed. That idiot from Manchester can take over and I'm off on holiday. What a way to go out, though, and I don't even like Starmer. Let's not forget he's been hopeless. But for 3 days, Burnham's the leader of the Labour Party and Keir Starmer's still Prime Minister. It's extraordinary, man.
I know, we've got 2 Prime Ministers at the same time, and it's almost as if he's timetabled his exit in order that he can go and watch the final of the World Cup. All I'll say is I hope he puts his hand in his own pocket, or maybe Lord Ali's going to pay for him to get on a plane to get out there. I mean, it is odd to have 2 Prime Ministers at exactly the same time. To me, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. As far as I'm concerned now, Andy Burnham has got sufficient votes in order that nobody else can contest him. So why don't we just do the decent thing? Get Starmer out to number 10, get Andy Burnham in, get him to the dispatch box tomorrow about Prime Minister's questions, and start to answer what he's going to do.
Well, I know, and I agree with that. The other issue, and the Tory party, I think, are absolutely right in raising this. If he becomes when he becomes Prime Minister, such weird, isn't it? When he becomes Prime Minister on Monday, Parliament goes into recess, and it will not be until the first week of September that he actually has to front out and talk to the very elected representatives we've put there for us, which is a farce. So the Tory party have been saying, actually not your thing, but that Parliament should resit next Tuesday and Wednesday rather than go on recess so that he can answer questions from elected representatives. I think that's the very least he should do, don't you?
Absolutely. It does seem odd as well that Parliament is going into recess early. When I was an MP for 32 years, I don't think we ever went into recess halfway through July. So even that's a bit odd as far as I'm concerned. Yes, Jesse Norman, the leader of the House of Commons for the Conservatives, has written to the Speaker to say, you know, we've not gone into recess. We're already asking for a recall in order that the Prime Minister, the new Prime Minister, can answer questions. Let's be fair. Andy Burnham is the easy rider of politics. He's managed to get from Mayor of Manchester to Prime Minister without hardly answering a question.
Yeah, but he went on a B bus, so he came all the way from Manchester on a B bus, because that's a really successful thing he's done, all the way to where I think it begs so many questions. You and I disagreed last week for the first time ever. I believe everybody should be scrutinised. I don't believe you should be able to change party mid-parliament. I think there should be. I think there should be a by-election. I don't believe you should change prime ministers. I don't care what anybody tells me. You made the point at the beginning about how he was absolutely nothing to do, okay, with the manifesto that Keir Starmer was elected on. That is not me sticking up for Keir Starmer, who has been a complete flop. What it says is that this man has been parachuted in from absolutely nowhere by 400 MPs who patently can't even find anybody in their own ranks who's any good. He talks about accountability, he talks about communications and opening up. Well, get to the House of Commons, mate, right, and answer questions and tell us, the British public, what we're going to expect. Because we know what happened the last time this happened with Starmer. We didn't know anything, and what a debacle that's turned out to be.
Yeah, well, there are two big things. Number one is who's going to be in the Burnham cabinet. None of us really know. Speculation that the convicted fraudster Louise Haigh is going to be brought back. That's one huge question mark there. Is Angela Rayner, the lady who avoided paying her stamp duty, is she going to be brought back? I mean, there's huge question marks as to who's going to be populating the cabinet. We read today that even Ed Miliband...
I can't. This is the story, if you're just tuning in. This is the story that is destined today to send me over the bloody edge. The king of net zero, Nige, Ed Miliband, the man who cancelled all licences for drilling in the North Sea, a man who patently refused to accept, despite us being 130 billion quid in debt, that we had this resource under the North Sea. No, I'm not drilling. It'll upset the friends of the earth. Net zero's where it's at. I'll let Norway drill it and I'll buy it off them. But no, it's all about wind farms. Has allegedly said this morning, I'll allow that, Mr. Burnham. I will start drilling again if you make me Chancellor. What an absolute... I can't have it. I can't have it, Nige.
Jeremy, he's got principles, and if you don't like them, he's got other principles. The fact that he's prepared to ditch his net zero zealotry in order to get his backside into number 11 Downing Street says it all. But it's not just that. It's what other policies is Ed Miliband prepared to bring in at the same time. I mean, if they're going to bring in all these wealth taxes, we've already seen 16,000 wealthy people quit the United Kingdom thanks to what Starmer and Reeves have done. And that figure is set to go up. We're reading in the newspapers that there are a ton of wealthy people who are already in contact with accountants who are giving them advice as to where to go. A ton of them have already gone to the UAE. Several thousands have gone to the United States of America, others to Italy. But what you can depend on is that they're not going to remain in the United Kingdom if they're going to be turned on. And I think Mel Stride, the Shadow Chancellor, is absolutely right to point out that if you're going to turn on the wealthy in Britain, you're really going to be attacking those who are going to be responsible, we're going to depend on for the growth in the United Kingdom.
Do you know what infuriates me? And even from a young age, that everybody would say, you should get into politics. How stupid is it to say to achievers, right? I think aspiration is one of the greatest things you can have in society. Sadly, the socialist doctrine of everybody should have the same doesn't work. Why do we have this view, or do socialists have this view, that if you're successful and you build a business, you employ people, they don't understand that that actually creates growth, that creates jobs. Oh, and your business is successful and you pay corporation tax and personal tax. Have they not worked out, these idiots, that the 16,000 people that have left this country, the money that they would be paying into the exchequer is huge, and simply by saying, oh, you're successful, we don't agree with that, these people will get... It's so narrow-minded and it reeks of jealousy. It does my head in, Nige. Really does.
Yeah, why doesn't Burnham take a leaf out of Maloney's book in Italy and ensure that we've got a flat rate of tax on people in order to attract them back into the United Kingdom? That's what Italy have done. And there's thousands of people who have now gone to Italy and they're paying their taxes to the Italian Treasury rather than the British Treasury. It's as simple as that. People have got a choice.
Yeah.
They're not handcuffed to the United Kingdom, except that there is speculation, Jeremy, that one of the first things Burnham will do will introduce an exit tax so that anybody who tries to leave the United Kingdom with their wealth all of a sudden will face an extra punitive tax for doing so. It's bonkers. You want to attract people to the United Kingdom, not handcuff them to the United Kingdom.
I do think, though, I said this last week, we'll move on to Anne in a sec. I did say last week that, you know, if you knocked on doors, and you've done plenty of that in your time, you would probably find that the most important things for people in no particular order are stopping the boats, dealing with net zero and starting to drill again, dealing with this ridiculous welfare budget that outstrips the money the taxpayer pays the exchequer, and the grooming rape gang inquiry. Here's a question for you. If Miliband is convinced by Burnham, who obviously has political capital and a wind in his sails right now, to start drilling again, might that turn people back to the Labour Party, or do you think that the British public will know that essentially it comes down to one thing and one thing only, which is we're going to raise your taxes in the end?
Well, I think that the early days are going to tell, Jeremy. Already we've got Tony Blair advising Burnham not to expect to be so popular. And if he does start his administration by bringing back Louise Haig and Angela Rayner, then people are already going to go, what? And then if they start introducing wealth tax measures that are going to repel the wealthy from the United Kingdom, and then carry on with other policies that were never in the manifesto in 2024, you have to remember as well, don't forget, that Keir Starmer wasn't Mr. Popular when he got that huge majority in 2024. He only got 33.7% of the vote. And now he's being booted out. We've got somebody coming in who wasn't even a member of Parliament until a few weeks ago. I mean, so I think he's going to be judged very quickly. If it is a honeymoon that he's going to get, Jeremy, it could be very quickly over.
It might be a mini-moon. Let's talk, before I let you go, my friend, about the other obviously huge story about Ann Widdecombe this week, the horrific murder. It's moved on overnight. It's now being treated by anti-terror cops as a politically motivated case. There is a suspect. We have to make that point. It is just a suspect. No charges have been made at this stage. Devon and Cornwall Police coming under great pressure this morning for coming out and saying, we think it's not politically motivated. Oh, it is. That's slightly sad. Lots of talk about security and people not wanting to go into politics. Your memories of Anne and your thoughts about where we go from here, Nigel Evans?
Well, I saw Anne just a few weeks ago at the launch of the book by Michael Ashcroft on Nigel Farage. And when I bumped into her, I gave her a big hug. And I said, can I talk about Catholicism with you? And she said, yeah, but when are you going to join the Reform Party, Nigel? She said, in that sort of distinct voice that she always had. And I'm finding it very difficult, you know, Jeremy, to reflect on losing somebody, such a formidable person, a political person in my life that I've known for decades, a truly spirited person. Never sought favour, never sought to please. She had principled views, no flip-flopping with Anne. And she was a remarkable politician, absolutely amazing. And it's incredible how I have seen comments on Twitter from people of all political persuasions paying tribute to her. People who never have agreed with Anne for a single second. And what an absolutely incredible personality, formidable force, a titan of politics in Britain. And yeah, I can't get my head around the fact that she's no longer there. And I was speaking to her just a few weeks ago. I'm going to go to church later today and say prayers for Anne. I'm actually in Norway at the moment, and there's a church just down the road from me, and I am going to light a few candles for Anne and pray for her soul. But I can't get my head around either why the police ran to judgment so quickly. to say that this wasn't politically motivated. Normally they say nothing, and that's the way they should have kept it. They sat on the fact that she had been murdered for 24 hours in order for them to carry on their investigation, and I fully understand that, in order for them to get a march on the person who perpetrated her murder, and I hope that they have got the one that's done it. But it didn't take them long, did it, when they started to investigate into this person, that it was politically motivated.
What does this do for the political landscape in this country? Dan Hodges this morning saying that a reformer attempting to deflect with this news from the scrutiny of Nigel Farage. Reform saying, hold on a minute, we're laying flowers for a colleague. Don't dare disrespect us. We don't feel safe. The Speaker being attacked from all sides about MPs wanting more safety. You were the Deputy Speaker. What is your view of that? Does more need to be done for MPs as a result of this before we know the absolute facts?
Well, the answer is yes, and they shouldn't be blaming the Speaker because this is independently sorted out by an organisation called RAVEC, who deal with royalty and politicians, and they're the ones that decide who should get what protection. And I've been saying, as you know, Jeremy, for quite some time, that some politicians ought to be getting more security, particularly Nigel Farage. He's been publicly attacked again and again. Yes, it may be the odd milkshake here and there, but we've also heard how it's been more than that from Nigel in some of the stories that he's been telling. I do hope that, and I'm pleased that the Home Secretary has now agreed that Nigel can meet with these people. Don't forget, he'll be fighting a very high-profile by-election over the next few weeks. He will want to be accessible to members of the public, but at the same time, we will want to ensure that he and others are going to be properly protected. And I don't know why it was that people thought that he ought not to get the protection. There's almost a derangement syndrome. Whenever Nigel Farage's name is mentioned, it's a little bit like Trump in America. The people go off on one as soon as he comes into the equation. He's been asking for more security for quite some time, and he deserves it. You know,
well, it came out last night that he'd actually turned down some initial tax funder-paid security. He thought it was inadequate, which is why he used that money. Nigel, it doesn't strike me as slightly ironic at all that you're in Norway. So are you coming home? I mean, they lost. They're rubbish. We're brilliant.
Now, I'll tell you what. Last night, I went up to the Royal Palace and saw hundreds of thousands of Norwegian fans welcoming their heroes home. They were having a royal reception last night, and it was spectacular. Hundreds of thousands of football fans, all cheering. I never felt threatened in one way, shape, form or another. And at one stage, and of course I was following
You didn't start rowing, Evans, did you?
Yes, I did the row. I was spectacular. I really enjoyed it. And I do hope, because I think they've got some of the best fans in the world in Norway, that they all get behind England now in order that we beat the Argies on Wednesday and we bring that cup home on Sunday. I really do. Can you imagine how it's going to be in London when the Open top tour of London is going to just be beyond surreal to see the England team after. I was 9 the last time we won the World Cup.
60 years and we're managed by a German. It's written in the stars. Nigel Evans, thank you so much indeed. You legend. Enjoy Norway. The man did rowing last night. What's happened to him? 0344 499 1000. Johnny, good morning.
Morning, Jez. It's Johnny in the van. Just wanted to talk a little bit about poor Ann Widdecombe. Bless her. This is just completely shocking news, the whole thing. It's crazy. But these lefty people that are messaging saying, well, you know, she should have died in a painful way and, you know, celebrating that she died. I mean, that's just abysmal. I mean, that's just, and it speaks massively about their mindset. You know, the mindset of these people, they're deranged. Now, I'm obviously a right-leaning type of person. And someone like Keir Starmer, I despise the man. I really do. I literally despise the man. But with that, I wouldn't dream of wanting to see him being physically harmed in any way. It just doesn't come into my mind, you know. And I'm sure most right-thinking people would feel the same way. It's a strange world we're living in, mate. Great show as ever. Take care, mate. Bye.
Thank you, Johnny. 0344 499 1000. It's cross 2. Are we crossing to Victoria Gardens? He's out in the bright... Well, it's not bright sunshine, a bit dull. On the Conservative round this morning, always grateful to them for providing the Shadow Executive Secretary to the Treasury. Goodness, that's a mouthful. Gareth Davis, MP, good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you so much. I know there's a speech today with Rachel Reeves about the Mansion House. It'll be her last one. She's going to be jettisoned by the imposter from Manchester. But let's talk firstly. It's really important. All of the news dominated by the tragedy surrounding Ann Widdecombe's murder, Gareth. And I wanted to ask, because so much has come out of this. Firstly, the Tory party's response this morning to criticism, quite widespread criticism, about how the officers in Devon and Cornwall has started this whole investigation, and actually started by breaking the golden rule and saying we don't think it's politically motivated, where it's turned out to be exactly that.
Well, look, I think, the first thing to say, what a tragedy for Anne's family, friends and colleagues, and that's what we've got to remember all times, that this is a personal tragedy. You just heard from Nigel Evans. You know, there's lots of people around here who were friends of hers, who worked with her for years, and we're all very sad about it. But there is a serious issue in our country where public figures are not feeling safe, and there are threats against public figures and serving elected members of Parliament that we need to tackle. Now, it is very difficult for the police. I completely understand that. Things change very quickly as evidence emerges, witnesses come forward, but we've got to let them get on with their job now. We've got an active investigation. It's now a counter-terrorist led investigation, and there is somebody in custody. Time will tell whether Devon and Cornwall police were too quick to rule out motive. They did say, by the way, at the beginning of their press conferences, they keep an open mind, but then went further. And I think, you know, as things go on, that may turn out to be a mistake. But what I'm focused on now is ensuring that the police have time to investigate this murder. I hope that they've got the right person. But we've got to give them that time.
Do you, just on a personal level, I've spoken to Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, I've spoken to Richard Tice. Do you, as an elected MP, feel safe, the job that you're doing? Do you, as a result of what happened to Ann Widdecombe, look over your shoulder? Do you think that all MPs should get enhanced security, Gareth?
I think, look, before I became a Member of Parliament, I didn't quite appreciate what Members of Parliament do have to deal with from a security perspective. I think everybody's got a story. Some have many stories. I think every MP is different, and some face more threats than others. What I will say is that there is a pretty robust offering in place by the security services. We have a point of contact within the police who is literally, you know, in regular contact. In fact, I heard from mine yesterday. And so personally speaking, I do feel like there is a sufficient provision and they're there when we need them. But inevitably, there is a sense when you have these tragic events of looking over your shoulder a little bit and wondering who's out there. Of course you do, and any public figure, I think, feels like that from time to time. But ultimately, what we've got to remember is that we've got to protect our democracy.
Yeah.
This very small minority of people want to undermine and damage our democracy and stop people from expressing their views and opinions. And we have to get better at this. We have to understand that we can disagree respectfully, but when it spills over into violence and intimidation and threats against your family or yourself, it's an absolutely unacceptable situation. And
well put.
Whatever review takes place, it needs to ensure that we stamp this out as much as possible.
Just quickly, before I do ask you about the mansion tax, Dan Hodges has been tweeting quite strongly and saying that what he says, I've been saying reform are attempting to deflect from the scrutiny of Nigel Farage's gift. They've been hysterically denying it, so let's test. I predict they will try to link today's statement about anti-terror police now leading the investigation with Farage's £5 million donation. I think the important point when you look at the lady on screen is we should try and move away from this, but it has opened up a huge amount of criticism on all political sides, hasn't it?
Well, I think Nigel Farage has to answer for his own actions. First and foremost, the £5 million gift that seems a bit fishy to me, and you know, whatever that was used for, he needs to answer questions about it and face scrutiny. We wait the investigation by the Standards Commissioner. There may or may not be another by-election on the back of that investigation. But at the same time, you know, Ann Widdecombe was a colleague of his, and I think he, you know, should be afforded the space to grieve and mourn and to pay his respects. But let's not forget that he does need to answer questions. This is not going to go away. He does need to face scrutiny on that £5 million gift, on the other allegations that he's facing about George Cotterill. Just, you know, take responsibility for your own actions and face up to the scrutiny is what I would say to Nigel.
As this government stutters to the end of the week, and we'll talk about the bizarre transition in a tick, Rachel Reeves, who's widely expected to be booted out of number 11 with her calculator, is making her Mansion House, well, final Mansion House speech tonight. What's the point? I'm not going to be disrespectful. What is the point of any of this week? Pointless.
Well, we're completely in limbo. She's out of a job in 6 days if press reports are accurate. There's going to be a slight awkwardness and elephant in the room tonight, I think, at her speech. She'll be announcing, as I understand it, a consultation on certain reforms. Well, who knows?
Of course, the Labour Party are talking about it.
Of
course, the Labour Party are talking about a bloody constellation that's got consultation. That's all they ever do, isn't it? To me, it's pointless. But she's not going to be the Chancellor, so why don't you just not go, love? Pointless.
Well, totally right. We've got a Prime Minister that's, you know, been overseas signing agreements. We've got a Chancellor that's completely in limbo and announcing consultations that may not even happen or be carried forward. This is why, by the way, we think Andy Burnham needs to start facing some scrutiny. We want him to come to the House of Commons next week to answer questions. We do not know what this man wants to do.
Completely agree with you. I have to say, I've said it for 24 hours. I think the Tory party is spot on calling for this. This is a man who up until 4 weeks ago wasn't an MP, had nothing to do with the manifesto on which Starmer, love him or loathe him, won a majority. This man, in some, I think, quite incredible coup, Gareth, to be honest, incredible coup, because apparently amongst their own 400 MPs there wasn't anybody with the ability to do the job. He's been parachuted in, and, you know, Starmer's having a breakdown. I don't know if you've heard this morning. Starmer suddenly got St George's flags in every window in Downing Street. He's decided to prescribe the IRG as a terrorist group, and despite the fact that he'll no longer be the Labour leader on a Friday but Prime Minister on Monday, he's going to go to the World Cup final if we make it, and sit there as the British Prime Minister. The whole country's in bloody limbo, man.
It is, and I didn't know about the St George's flags. Just don't tell Emily Thornberry about that. She'll have a hissy fit. That will not go down well, I think. But look, it's good that he's supporting England, but yeah, it's just a ridiculous situation that we find ourselves in. Andy Burnham needs to answer questions, put himself forward for scrutiny, and tell us what he wants to do with the country and what he's going to do with it.
Well, he's doing his maiden speech to the House of Commons today about Hillsborough. That will be exciting. We'll update it. Now, this is a very... this is going to be... Are you Welsh?
I've got a very Welsh name, but I'm afraid it's in honour of my grandfather who was Welsh, but I'm very much English.
No, it's just that Christian's Welsh and he doesn't want to talk about football because Wales didn't get there, but good. How do you see tomorrow night? I mean, they're all coming out the woodwork. Will you be watching it? Will you be drinking a drink or two, Gareth, and cheering the boys on?
Of course. Of course I will. For my sins. I mean, it's hard being an England fan. Any time, isn't it? It's traumatic, you know. Who knows what will happen, but I'm pretty sure, I'm confident, you know, I've got to be confident in this. It's going to be 2-1 England. Argentina may score first, which will be traumatic, but I think we'll get there in the end, and this could be it. It could be coming home, let's see.
After 60 years, right? Managed by a German, and our outgoing Prime Minister sits there and he's no longer the... The whole thing's just weird, isn't it? Gareth Davis, genuinely lovely to speak to you, my friend. Thank you so much indeed. Gareth Davis, Shadow Executive Secretary to the Treasury, 9:25. We're live across the UK and Talk Breakfast. Malcolm, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. It's Malcolm in Devon. Well, not actually in Devon. I've come up north now. I'm in Bristol. So weather's slightly different up here. Bit of a towny sort of feel up here. No fields, not right. Anyway, I was just thinking, with everything that's going wrong at the moment with Anne, and with that weirdo in the IT department up north, saying all those hurtful things, I reckon when I pop my clogs, I'm going to come back as a ram or a bull. So all I got to do all day without any stress is just, and then literally every time a lefty or Greenpeace activists or any one of them come into my bloody field, I can headbutt the buggers over the edge. Cheers, mate. Have a good day.
I don't condone any violence at all. It was a public service announcement on Talk.
Let's get to the calls now. And Kevin is in Basingstoke. Morning, Kevin. Hey. Kevin, what do you think of this cycling conversation?
Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to...
disagree with me.
Yeah. I mean, there's far more accidents caused by cars than bikes.
Yeah, we're not talking about cars, Kevin. We're talking about bikes.
I'm never talking about bikes, but if we encourage more bikes, then there'll be less accidents. More people...
yeah, more people on bikes who are not being controlled by anything.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 20 minutes to 9. Duncan Barks is here for 10 o'clock this morning. Sounding brilliant yesterday, by the way. Ian Collins from 1 and Kevin O'Sullivan on drive from 4 o'clock this afternoon. Jez, I'm sorry, but as much as Gareth Davis says Farage needs time to grieve, he still spent more time talking about the 5 million quid and had slight giggles as he talked about it, which took away the empathy in my mind, says Dave in Lichfield. Whatever, but I would say this. The Tory party puts somebody up every single morning and answer our questions straight on, which is a lot more than anybody does in the Labour Party. Let's be honest about that, right? We do have two-tier police. I don't know what the name of this person is. We have the actual police who just want to do their job, and we have their superiors who seem to be in lockstep with the government nudge unit. Morning, Jezza. Regarding the mistrust in the police, the fish rots from the head. There has to be an overhaul. Don't forget, says Lee, they also said, the Devon and Cornwall police, this is an example of policing at its best. You're absolutely right. Didn't work out that way. Andy's in Hornchurch. I'm against all this talk of enhanced security for MPs, Jezza. On my way to work near the West End, won't be able to wear my nice watch, can't use my phone in the street anymore, all because these MPs allowed lawlessness. Let them get onto the tube to the House of Commons, open up Downing Street like it was until the 70s. We need a return to law for all. Morning, Jez. Nigel Farage's donations are a matter of public records. Let's put all the MPs under the same microscope, and you'll find that most of them will have failed to disclose or declare something. It is a bloody witch hunt, says Mike in Cheshire. Jez, Jez. Keith in Wolverhampton, my country. 3595599. Get out to me. That's me. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I reckon there'll be a highly contentious refereeing decision against England, mate. The USA will not want Messi to lose. He plays in the Major League Soccer and a massive revenue gain is at stake if he's a World Cup winner on American soil. Let's see if I'm right. Yeah, well, if you are right, that's it. That's it. I think we should get the Prime Minister to phone up. Oh, no, that's right. That can't happen. Hello, is that Infantino? It's Keir Starmer here. Oh, actually, there's the issue. Who's supposed to ring him up? Burnham or Starmer? We've got two Prime Ministers. Right. Let's get more on this story that the Sun are reporting, the Mail are, every newspaper. Ann Copp's terror probe. Sometime yesterday, Nigel Farage said he thought this crime was premeditated. Devon and Cornwall police had jumped out the starting gates and gone, no, it's not political. Well, it turned out yesterday, it most undoubtedly is. The anti-terror cops have now taken over from CID. Devon and Cornwall police have stood to the side. Those officers have been accused of getting it wrong in what they said. We don't think it's politically motivated. There now seems to be proof that it most definitely could be. The suspect, and we have to say that is a suspect, no charges have been made at this stage, is still in police custody. Earlier, Mike Neville told us because it's a terrorist offence, this person could be questioned for 14 days. Let's say a very good morning to the former senior police officer and head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office, Chris Phillips. Good morning, how are you?
Good morning, Jez. Very good.
This is an extraordinary story. Devon and Cornwall police are taking a lot of flack, I think understandably. They described it as policing at its best. Yesterday afternoon, anti-terror cops took over the Ann Widdecombe murder investigation. Give me an idea of what will be happening right now, timelines and everything, Chris, if you could.
Well, I mean, the investigation goes on. I think it's Devon and Cornwall are being criticised here. I think they were under some pressure to give intelligence or information out. That's what the social media, that's what media needs these days, it seems, to keep going. And what they said was there's no terror link at the moment, but we're keeping an open mind. And of course, then what happens is the investigation goes to the person's house, and clearly some information has come in to say, well, this is probably a politically motivated attack. And therefore, the counter-terrorism police have been engaged. And of course, they've got far more resources, and particularly resources that can deal with overseas. So if there is an overseas link to this, the counter-terrorist police will be better placed to deal.
Terrorist links, I mean, you know, just scraps, quite rightly, because we must let the police get on with their job, but scraps of information, what did I read? Some socialist or Marxist literature apparently found in this suspect's house. How serious does it have to get to the layperson? This is a question. How serious does it have to be for counter-terrorist police to get involved, Chris?
Well, I mean, terrorism is a very, very serious offence. Of course it is. Murder is a very, very serious offence. When you put the two together, you know, you've engaged a much more of a big issue, because it's about why this person, Anne, was murdered. We have murders every day across the UK, one form or another. Very few of them are actually committed because of someone's politics or because you want to change the way people live in the UK. That makes this much more serious. Terrorism is about frightening the public as well. And of course, the links that the terrorism police will be looking to is this overseas motivated? Has this come from a terror group overseas? And of course, as the investigation rolls down the hill, much more of this will be known. But there's this push by media outlets such as this and such as social media that more and more information should be released to the public. That's not always the best interest of the
No, I get that, and I put this squarely in the government, and I'll tell you why I did. I mean, I said it earlier about Southport. I get that, right? I still don't think the police can be absolved here. I'll tell you why. I think during Southport, Starmer and his government absolutely knew that it wasn't an illegal migrant. I think they knew all about Ruda Bacana, but I think there was a very febrile response on social media. And you're going to disagree with me. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I think they let that build. I think they let that spill out so they could take to the streets with the police, arrest these people, call them all far right, lock them up, release some other prisoners in Gucci trainers and look really, really strong. I think on the back of that, police forces are probably, you're right, under social media pressure to give out information. But surely the most responsible thing here is not to take pressure from either people or the government and say, look, a man is in custody. They had to say straight away he's white and British. That immediately, to me, was a red flag, right? I'm just being straight. Then they go, he's not a... They did say it. We don't think he's as a terrorist. Those two things, to me, smack of government interference. But if you're a police officer, OK, I'm not defending the government in any way. Isn't the intelligent thing to say, we have a man in custody, we need to be allowed to get on with our investigations. Everybody needs to hold fort here. But they've been manoeuvred or through fear, a bit like the Novak, horrible Novak case. They've got themselves to a position where they don't know whether to turn left or right. And then that just creates even more confusion online, doesn't it? That's the truth.
Yeah, you're not wrong there, Jeremy. I think the police are really struggling to deal with social media and the media generally. There's a lot of course, Devon and Cornwall don't deal with this kind of level of crime either.
No.
But I mean, you have to be fair in what they said. They said, look, we're keeping an open mind. At this moment, there is no links to
yeah, but Chris, they also said this is policing at its best. You'd understand the average alarm clock Brit listening to this going, policing at its best. It's not particularly good enough, is it? And it's the people up top. It's not the men and women on the streets. Blexley tells me every day. Neville tells me every day. You know, it's the ideology that the senior officers have been filled with by whatever that comes from. Government, I don't know.
I'm not disagreeing with you to some extent there, Jez, but what I would say, they caught the suspect within days of this this terrible attack taking place. The investigation is throwing up more and more information, and they're having to respond to it. I think, what do we want from our police? We want them to catch people that have committed murder.
I want to see them on the bloody streets. I want them to do what police officers used to do. Do you remember the old days when if the police officer grabbed you by the ear and threatened you to take you home to your mum, you were terrified? Now they sit, it's not their fault, behind a computer, box tick, and everybody's done. It's no good, man. Surely you get intel 30%. By being on the streets, don't you?
Yeah, but, you know, I go to Spain quite often, go to France. They've got twice the number of police officers that we have in the UK. We are just, you know, the police are so underfunded. I'm not making excuses. No. Listen, I believe that we need to police our communities. We need to have uniform bobbies out on the street. We need to have good standards within policing. But I would say we have to cut them a bit of slack when they're trying to deal with an investigation that's gone, you know, a suspect's come 300 miles. They've managed to track him down. They've arrested him straight away. They've caught him. They're now investigating. And the investigation is throwing up more information, which means that this person has got, it seems, political links in some form or another, which makes this a much more serious offence than it was otherwise. And
changes the landscape politically and all the arguments that have. Just one quick question from a National Counter-Terrorism Security Office official. Do you think this will lead to greater security for all MPs? Do you think it'll turn people off public life? Because it's frightening, right?
People have been turned off public life. That's why we've got a load of idiots in the House of Parliament, isn't it? Let's be quite frank. People don't become really good people don't become MPs for many reasons, and this is one of them: security. That's why we've got such a low level of MPs in our country.
Great to have you on, mate, and I mean that. It's always an absolute pleasure. Chris Phillips, former head of a National Counter-Terrorism Security Office. Thank you so much indeed, my friend. 10 to 9, 0344 499 1000. Tomorrow, we take on Argentina. Oh, it's all started. We're coming back after this break with a Falklands veteran because the Argentinians are starting to bitch about the Falklands. Of course they are. I'll start bitching about the hand of God, cheating bunch of whatevers. Back in 3.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 9 minutes to 9. We're live across the UK. Morning, Lisa.
Morning, Jezza. It's Lisa from Canterbury. Watching this little bit that you're talking about, saying about 6 days for Burnham. I think it is an absolute, utter disgrace that somebody can just walk in to number 10 and take over the country. And I think that the way that, all of these parties work should be that they actually sign the manifesto of what they're going to deliver. This is a contract for our country, and he's basically been allowed to walk in and take over and do what the hell he likes, just like the rest of them. And, the whole thing about this needs to change. They're putting in a manifesto, change it when they get in, and they should be signing that contract, just like Trump does, showing the signal, showing what he's going to deliver. This is a contract for our country, and he hasn't even got one. I cannot believe that he hasn't had to stand there and deliver a speech to the country about what he intends to do. It's an absolute disgrace. Really, Jezza, this country's a laughingstock to the rest of the world. Thank you.
Couldn't agree anymore. Lisa Burnham on Burnham, 0344 499 1000. Now, tomorrow night, England, Argentina, 8 o'clock in the semi-finals of the World Cup. Massive, massive game. TalkSport, our sister station, will have it all. Fantastic coverage, extraordinary. But, of course, it started. The hand of God, Diego Maradona, yeah. Old Beckham being sent off, oh, yeah. The Falkland Islands, absolutely. Downing Street has hit back overnight after Argentina dragged the Falkland Islands into the looming World Cup showdown. The PM spokesman insisted the territory's sovereignty is not up for grabs, unlike the Chagos times, after Foreign Minister Pablo Cuerno, have I got that right, claimed UK sovereignty was illegitimate because the population had been artificially implanted by the occupying power. Right. Tensions are escalating ahead of the semi-final clash, with footage emerging of Argentinians players chanting about the islands and, of course, that bloody cheating hand of God 40 years ago. Let's put some perspective on the United Kingdom when we did have a navy, when we did have a Prime Minister with a pair who was prepared to make this country great. So a very good morning to Chris Howe, Falklands veteran. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning, Jeremy.
Let me firstly say thank you, because you remind me of a time when this country was proud of itself and proud of its servicemen and women. Not speaking. Chris, whenever Argentina and England play football, the Falklands gets dragged into the discussion. This started yesterday with an Argentinian. What's your take on this, my friend?
Well, it's another in a long history of comments, really, isn't it, where we get these people challenging the sovereignty of the Falkland Islands, and whatever they say, it simply doesn't alter the facts. The Falkland Islands are British, and their future rests with the freely expressed wishes of the Falkland Islanders, as proved in the referendum some years ago, where an extremely high number, 99-point-something%, said we will stay British under our own rule. So these Argentinian government officials, football supporters or others who challenge it, it doesn't change anything.
When you and your fellow servicemen and women were sent 8,000 miles south to fight by Margaret Thatcher, what was it? What was the feeling like? Did you not look forward to it, but were you encouraged? Did you think it was the right decision? Were you all as one? Did you know you were doing the right thing? Were you proud to be British? All the things you can't be nowadays?
We certainly were, all of us, to a man. Certainly in my ship, I was on HMS Coventry, and sadly, as you probably know, we didn't make it back. We were sunk and lost 19 of my shipmates. But as a Falklands veteran of 1982, all of us are proud of that the British forces sailed south at great cost, and by that I mean in lives. 255 we lost, and 3 Falkland Islanders as well. But we liberated the islands after the unlawful Argentinian invasion, and they're good at that, unlawful in '86 with the Maradona hand of God incident. But their actions, our actions back in '82, gave the Falkland Islands right to live under the government of their choice, as they still do today.
And I think that's a really, really salient point, and I think you make it so well about the referendum. It enabled the British liberation of the Falkland Islands. For 99.9% of them voted for this, for them to live under the government of their choice. Of course, what happens is whenever there's a football match or something, you're quite right, this all comes up. Are you a football fan, my friend?
I have. I've watched all the England matches so far, and I'll be watching the last 4 matches tonight, tomorrow night, and the playoffs, and then again the final.
What do you think? There's been talk that the FIFA want Messi to win because it's in America. He plays in the MSL. That it's done. The referees are going to be bent. It's all going to be a complete nightmare. What's a Falkland veterans prediction for tomorrow night, Chris Ho?
Well, we're going to win, aren't we? Surely. I mean, but seriously, we want to see an open, fair, honest, hard-fought match from both sides, with the best team winning with the laws of the game. And naturally, we hope that team is England, and of course it will be.
Come on!
But more seriously, sport at any level should remain free of any of this political interference and nonsense.
Completely agree.
What it is.
I'll finish. So Starmer should stay at home. I'll finish as I started, Chris. What your fellow men and women did is one of those things that makes me proud to be British, and we thank you so much indeed for your service, sir. Thank you, Chris Howe, Falklands veteran, ahead of that semi-final tomorrow night. He's right. Sport and politics should be kept aside. Probably they won't be at all times, but one thing's for sure. We've beaten them once, and I'm sure we'll beat them again. We're back in 3.
Some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
Something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a Talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain?
Yeah.
Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
It's happened before, but it is nonetheless still rather extraordinary that somebody who was only elected or officially sworn in as an MP less than 24 hours ago, in 3 weeks' time, is going to be running the country.
Yes, I think it is rather extraordinary. I think the issue isn't whether someone like that should automatically have to hold a general election. If Andy Burnham wants to introduce major changes to our constitution, he's talked about overhauling the House of Lords. He's also talked about overhauling our electoral system, bringing in some form of PR. I think if he wants to do any of those things, he needs a mandate from the public to do them. To try and do them without calling an election, I think, would be a constitutional outrage.
I've got an interesting tweet. There's always a tweet, Julia.
Yep.
If I can just read this out to you from Andy Burnham 3 years ago. We need to start demanding a general election at the end of this Tory leadership election. Well, well, well. That was Andy Burnham actually 4 years ago in 2022. So we're saying stick by your word, be consistent, Andy, and when you're Prime Minister, call a general election.
So the battle is really on, though, for number 11. Who's going to be the Chancellor? Ed Miliband, don't forget, has played an integral key role in this coup, and it is a coup because no one apart from 25,000 good people of Makerfield have voted for this guy. Yeah. So he's played a pretty integral role in undermining Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer and Ed Miliband aren't really speaking. He's going to want a big reward. But, you know, he is, you know, probably the most left-wing person in the government, and he will spook the markets.
Lou Hay, I mean, the reality is, look, she served her time. You know, she was cast out of government. The reality is, as you said, she has been central to his campaign. She was central to his campaign in Makerfield. More broadly, she's been central to his campaign to enter Downing Street. He owes her, and she will definitely get a role. I'm not.
What do you say to the people that have texted me in their droves this morning? This is a really corny sentence, but it's true. That lawbreakers can't be lawmakers, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, but the reality is she's going to get a job. So the answer is yes, they can.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Amongst all the misery and sadness, I do genuinely wish that you could somehow see or hear the grief that I get. There's a programme that Talk do, which is called Grumpy Old Men, which I'm on today. Tommy just sort of came in with a cup of tea and said, well, to be honest, you fit the bill perfectly for that programme, don't you? You're grumpy and old. It's nice, isn't it? It's great. Christian's laughing. Still hasn't found his father in Wales, though. 0344. Is he not on today, your dad? Hasn't called in. He called in twice and wants nothing to do. Hello! Hello! No, you're not Christian's dad. Goodbye. Ta-da! That's basically what Christian's dad said to him, if you've heard the notch of whatever his name is through us. Ta-da now! 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. This is Talk Breakfast. So much has been talked about Ann Widdecombe over the last few days. A formidable, incredible politician, a woman with views who stuck to them. It sort of reminded me of old-school politicians that weren't based on focus groups, that were based on belief. And there was a bit of a twist yesterday. Yesterday afternoon, we discovered that anti-terror cops had indeed taken over her murder investigation. Bless her, you can see her on screen there. And this was something that a certain lady was very strongly saying yesterday morning. A lot of people kicked back about this, but Isabel Oakeshott, you must feel vindicated because you said to me yesterday morning, despite Devon and Cornwall police saying 4 days ago it wasn't political, you had real fears that it is. Good morning, how are you?
Well, of course, there are still so many unanswered questions, and I think a critical one that MPs and their families are really just waiting to understand is whether this individual, I'm sure he's not yet charged, I don't think.
No, he's just a suspect. No charges have been made at this stage. And in fact, just to update you, from a police, well, actually, Mike Neville, because it's now a terrorist-related thing, they can be held for 14 days. So this is not going to happen quickly, I imagine.
Exactly. So the alleged attacker, I think what MPs and their families are really wanting to know very badly, and I don't know how long it'll take before we get that information, is whether whoever did this was acting alone or whether they're part of some kind of crazy group or with whatever ideology they may have. That has, you know, but those scenarios are both quite different, aren't they? Mm-hmm. The lone wolf scenario is still horrifying, both in what it's done to poor Anne, but also the implications for MPs that you know, there are those crazy people around. It's a reminder. But obviously, if this is part of something wider, that has even bigger implications. So I don't exactly feel vindicated in the sense that it's just, to me, it's obvious, completely obvious. And I think to most people, it's pretty obvious that this wasn't just some random thing that happened to be Ann Widdecombe. It seemed to me quite obvious that it was targeted. But I don't feel vindicated. I just feel a bit sick, really. I mean,
well, I want to ask you on a personal level, and you can tell me to do one. I had your husband to be on at 7 o'clock, and, you know, he's a mate of mine, you're a mate of mine. And I asked him if he was all right. And he said it's difficult. And I had a text from a woman who leads a reform council. I'm not going to tell you where, because it's not right, because she said keep that anonymous, and she'd been asked to stand, and she won't, because her 15-year-old daughter is terrified. And the reality of this isn't about reform. This is about all MPs and anybody thinking of standing for public life. Does this, as a future wife of an elected MP, does that fill you with fear, this sort of revelation, the way politics, the landscape seems to have changed?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly gives me pause for thought. You know, I'm very reflective about it. I happened to notice that our front door had been bolted twice from the inside. We've got one of those doors that has multiple locks on it. And you know, we live in the Cotswolds. When I first moved here, you know, we used to routinely leave the door open, and people do here, which is lovely. But one of the children had late at night decided that all the bolts needed to be shut. And it just was a bit of a moment. And I thought, gosh, the children are, you know, they're teenagers, but they're obviously affected by this. Equally, you know, the thought of, when Richard goes to work, whatever, that he's being accompanied by security, it's just a very different feel about the role that our politicians play. And it's already pretty awful going into public life. People do it, I think, largely, whatever party they represent, they do it for good reasons. Most of them do it for good reasons. And I just think the sacrifice is just so great now. You know, it's not now just the absolute misery you get on social media the whole time. It's really horrible what people say. And, you know, the disgusting cartoons and reduction of our MPs and their families to something that is ugly and badly motivated and all of that, which we deal with all the time. Now is this feeling of this ominous kind of threat to life. And you know, we're not poor us or poor me about it. You know, it's also an incredible privilege to be an MP. It's an amazing job. Every time I go into the House of Commons, and I was a pass holder there for 10 years, I rarely go in now, even though I do have a pass, because I'm Richard's partner. I just think, my God, this place is incredible. Yeah. I've never got bored of it.
I literally, I sound like a kid in a sweet shop. I went for lunch with Richard some weeks ago. Is that? Wow. But I think it's extraordinary. Wow. But of course it does with everything that happens. And you know, you touched upon it, I touched upon it. Richard now is getting 24-hour security, as are all Reform MPs. You and your children, though, are not afforded the same. And you start to think, I mean, don't laugh at me, but I presume a lot of politicians and their partners are starting to go, is it worth it? Is it worth it?
Well, I'm afraid I do have those thoughts. And I have had those thoughts before this, because the opportunity cost as well for people that have come from very successful business backgrounds, you know, they give up their opportunity to keep making money that buys fancy holidays and, you know, all the other things that people might like to have. There's a big opportunity cost, even if people are being kind of nice and polite and decent towards you. You know, part of this is how high the stakes are in politics now. And Reform makes no secret of saying we're fighting for our country. You know, we do tend to use quite militaristic language. You know, this is war, this is a battle, all of that. And I guess a lot of ordinary voters feel this is, you know, the last chance for Britain. And, you know, the language that we're all using is quite apocalyptic. And so these are the times we're in. Britain is not a happy country by and large. I think we'll be very happy if we win the football. But, you know, taking the tone across the nation, we're not a happy country. We're very divided. You know, our economy isn't doing great, and there are so many problems that we all know about. And in that context, it's really hard being a politician that is fighting for something very different. Not
Change. Can I ask you to respond? I mean, we did it with Richard. We'll do it with you. Dan Hodges has come under fire this morning from many of my listeners. He's a regular on this show, and I've always said I want all sides because I want to be able to debate people. He says on a tweet today, Isabel, sorry to be a stuck record, but as I said, Reform and Nigel Farage's priority in all of this is Nigel Farage. I've been saying that Reform are attempting to deflect from scrutiny of him. They've been hysterically denying it. So let's test. I predict they will try to link today's statement about anti-terror police now leading the investigation with Farage's $5 million donation. Now, I know it's unpalatable to many because a 78-year-old formidable friend of many of ours was bludgeoned to death last Wednesday, and it should be about finding those people responsible and bringing them to justice. But the fallout from security we've talked about. What do you say to Dan Hodges and others who are saying this suits the Reform playbook completely, Isabel?
Well, no one's playing games at this point, and I stopped short of naming Dan yesterday because he's a journalist and I don't like arguing with other journalists, and he's also a contributor to Talk. But I think that Dan has been largely responsible for whipping this up over the weekend, whipping up verbal attacks on Reform MPs and how they responded to the death of a colleague. He sought to put that in the worst possible light. And that is exactly why we are where we are. You know, when Reform colleagues can't say anything about what's happened because they're going to be accused of politicising it or trying to use it as some kind of excuse, that is precisely the behaviour I'm talking about that poisons everything and makes it so hard being in public life. That impugning of motives, that putting the worst possible complexion on the responses and contributions of our politicians is really, really unhealthy. And I'm pretty annoyed, actually, that Dan, who is very respected and has a lot of influence, is using his energy in this matter. Now, it may very well be that, in a sense, this it reinforces a point that Nigel Farage and his colleagues have been making, which is that 5 million, which I don't think he's mentioned at all. So I don't know why Dan's saying, you know, Reform are going to start talking about the 5 million. No one wants to talk about the 5 million. You know, we're all pretty sick of talking about the 5 million. But the fact is that a senior Reform figure has just been murdered, and Nigel Farage has been talking about how that 5 million is needed for his security. It's a juxtaposition of two things, which does help reinforce the argument, which doesn't mean that's what Reform wants.
It's interesting as well. They seem to be. I mean, I would say genuinely, and of course I'll debate Dan Hodges. I think you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. If you stand up and you lay flowers out of respect for a colleague who's been absolutely and utterly, it had her life end in the most horrible, horrible way, then you're accused of not caring. If you do turn up and there are cameras there, you're accused of taking advantage. There's no doubt, you just said it. Reform, you know, they don't need to be talking. They don't want to be talking about the 5 million. There's politics the whole time. There's all sorts of stories about all sorts of people. But there's a feeling that a lot of people are using this to bash Farage and Reform over the head. I noticed also yesterday, I was going to ask you, Reform have now, and you'd know this as Richard's partner, given all their high-profile people 24-hour security. And this is being paid for by the party. Where do you stand on, like, you know, this? I know yesterday Nigel was granted talks with an elite government security team. Do you think this should be spread out to all MPs? Do you think it should just, I mean, how are Reform going to pay for this ultimately round the clock unless the government get involved?
Well, I don't think it's going to go on being round the clock forever, because I just don't think that's realistic, and I don't think it's how our MPs or any other party's MPs want to live. You know, we've got to look at what is it about our society that this is supposedly necessary. Yeah. And I think you and I were talking about this very openly and honestly yesterday morning. And we had a great security expert on Talk yesterday afternoon who was explaining that You know, the people that make the loudest threats towards politicians or anyone else, the people that make those threats are very, very rarely the people that actually carry out those threats. So I feel that danger can come from anywhere. And, you know, again, that expert was saying, unfortunately, you know, having a bodyguard or even more than one bodyguard, of course, it protects someone like Nigel if he's in a crowd. But it doesn't stop the lone wolf nutter killing you as you walk through a churchyard on the way to the station or wherever else you may be.
I couldn't agree more. And one point I wanted to make, which, via Christian actually, but it's a very salient point, which nobody's made about Farage. Many people in this country see Reform as really the only party that will fight back against the Uniparty, and they listen, they've got their finger on the pulse, and as the sort of figurehead of that, Nigel Farage has been essential in pushing that message. You could say about the gift from Christopher Harbon, I mean, I know the left don't like it, but plenty of political parties have taken donations from all sorts of people. I believe there's a Russian in the House of Lords who gave loads of money to the Tory party. But let's get back to Nigel Farage. If he hadn't people been gifted that money by a man who cares about Britain to pay for his own security, and let's point out, yes, he was offered some by the government, it wasn't deemed adequate enough, and I've spent time with Nigel Farage, and there are 4 people around him, and if he knew the threats and the stuff that he gets, you'd understand why. He would probably not have come back into politics and would have dropped out by now, and then what chance would the people who see him as the saviour have had to look to the future? That point hasn't been made, Isabel.
Well, I think that's very true. I mean, I work around a lot of very, very wealthy people, and they generally do have teams of 4. You know, these people are on rotations. You know, one person just isn't enough. You know, even if I were to go on you know, to a difficult country, a hostile environment, they would always say, you know, you're not just going to take one person.
You're talking about the United Kingdom when you say that?
Well, that's kind of beginning to see how it feels. Frankly, none of this would happen in the much safer country that I'm based in, which is in the UAE. I don't know, Jezza, I just feel like this morning I just feel a bit down, really. It's just all so horrible. It's all so negative. You know, I watch what Richard does and the sacrifice he makes, and he's honestly, along with other Reform MPs and MPs from other parties, he's giving it his all. You know, so many of them are giving it their all.
I had Matt Vickers in here this morning. Matt Vickers. Let me tell you about Matt Vickers this morning, because I was blown away by what he said. He said, I had a couple of mates down at the weekend, and I was doing a television show last night from 9 till 12. I had a whole day. I left at 6 yesterday morning. I got up at 4:30 to do this. I've got a whole day of meetings. They said to him, you haven't seen me. We thought MPs did nothing. He told of how his pay received an email threatening to firebomb his parents' home. And he said exactly what you said. Whatever your political persuasion, there comes a point when you go, hold on a minute, really? And I think Nigel snapped a couple of weeks ago, and I sort of get that. I get anybody that would go, you know, it's not the same as politics. I've had it. Everybody knows that story. And it does get you in places you probably don't even know, when you feel you're being hunted, pursued, stalked, whatever it is. And I don't know how we change it. I don't know whether... One thing I'm happy to say, and I've said it all morning, is, you know, quite rightly, the far right get accused of many things, but the way the activist left wing jump and write, and, you know, for a hashtag be kind bunch of woke idiots, they are vile in many, totally vile in so much they say, and it drags people down, Isabel. It's bound to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, this trans person from Aberdeen University,
Heather Herbert.
I don't understand why it's necessary for the university to have an investigation. I've investigated and it's taken me 5 minutes. That person wrote those things. I wouldn't want them working for me or any institution.
But is that anti-free speech? Then we get into the whole debate.
I don't mind what people say, but I do mind who chooses to employ them. You know, you can say what you like. You don't have to be employed by an educational institution that's funded by the taxpayer. I just, you know, I know we're running out of time here, so I know I've been very downbeat. I do want to say, just to emphasise what a, you know, I don't want to just say it's all awful being an MP. It's an incredible, incredible honour. And I know that Richard and other MPs absolutely love what they do, truly believe in what they do, and they are not going to be put off fighting for our country because of this type of risk. Okay, so we can all have a bit of a down moment and think, my God, there's a hell of a sacrifice here. but the prize is too important to let go of. We're going to carry on, and we're going to keep doing what we do. And, you know, if that means we have to have, you know, a little bit looking over our shoulders, a bit more than we'd like to, well, you know, I think we're tough enough for that.
Do you know, you're much more experienced than me, and I'm going to sound like I'm talking to you like I'm your dad, which I'm probably old enough to be. I've learnt one thing in 30 years of doing this. It actually does never do anybody any harm in terms of the media or a profile to, it's not even weakness, to just be human and actually say, you know what, I am a little bit scared, or I'm a little bit down, or I am a little bit, frankly, why the hell am I doing this when I could be sitting somewhere without this grief? But of course the fire inside burns, and Richard and the guys at Reform and other political parties want to do best. But when you hear and you see a 78-year-old woman bludgeons to death in her own kitchen, you're bound to take bloody stock of your life. And I think that is a perfectly normal human reaction. That to me makes those MPs even stronger, that they're doing it, in my mind.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're at. I think everybody's very reflective. You know, we're a few days into this, and it's just taken such a while to process and absorb, hasn't it? And there is just a sort of horrible sinking feeling in the pit of the stomach about where we are as a country, and, you know, the loss of life and just the human side of it. All of that is just horrible. But we've got so much to campaign for, and we've got to keep our focus on that. And we've all, you know, MPs have been elected for a term, and they've just got to keep going. And they know that. It's just not nice to work in this atmosphere. And commentators impugning the motives of MPs, automatically layering on the worst possible interpretation and putting the worst, most negative complexion on what MPs do, I think that's really, really unhelpful. And maybe I've done it sometimes, and I'm going to try to do that a bit less, but I don't think I've behaved quite like that.
Great to have you on, Sweet. Thank you so much. Always very honest and a fantastic addition to this team. Talks International editor Isabel Oakeshott. Thank you very much indeed. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Duncan barks. No, he doesn't always. I'm sorry. What a lovely guy, by the way. Duncan barks is on at 10 o'clock. Met him yesterday. Said, I've never met you before. He said, just say I met you in 2009. It's kicking in, patently. Lovely guy. Have a listen from 10 o'clock. Morning, Wayne.
Good morning, Jezza. So the police force, definitely not politically motivated. And we're doing such a great job. We've arrested a 28-year-old. 4 hours later, oh, we got the wrong person. Right, so you're not technically doing such a great job then, are you? As I said, all the time in the world for the coppers on the ground, but the blob and the leading people above, absolutely useless. And you know what? The left absolutely hate the fact that this has happened to Ann Widdecombe. And I tell you why they hate it. Not because she's passed away and was murdered so brutally, but because it justifies the one person they hate more than anybody else in the world, Nigel Farage. It puts the point across that they are fueling the anger. Not the far right, not the Union Jack or the St George's Cross. The far left are the ones that are fueling this hatred and are creating this dangerous society.
Current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up. I'm trying to record something.
Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views. I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 9:25. For those of you who have been listening for the last 3.5 hours, Dan Hodges from The Mail is a regular on this show, has come under quite a bit of kickback from Reform voters. He says that he believes that Reform are attempting to deflect scrutiny from the £5 million loan that Nigel Farage took. Loads of you going, oh, I shouldn't be on the show. Yes, you should. You can come on tomorrow and we'll have the debate. And if you want to phone up and make your point, that's what it's all about. There's no point in not dealing with it. I don't have to agree with everything Dan says, and I'm sure he doesn't agree with everything I say, but that's the beauty of this show, as long as I'm doing it. 03, that sounded ominous. 0344 499 1000, text to 87 222. Jez, just wanted to add that this is not only an MP concern. Anne was not a current MP. This is a larger social issue, far-left ideology, and those who believe that violence is justified to maintain political power. Good morning to Ian Brown. Rayner shouting Tory scum at a party conference is where we are at in politics. A total disrespect to the person, office and Parliament. What example does this make? I think there's been examples politically. I think there's been examples press. I'm sure there's been examples in the media. Good morning, JK. We don't know anything about Burnham. He could turn us into the 1930s Germany. God help us, says Barry, who's escaped to Spain. We could tomorrow. We could on Sunday win the World Cup managed by a German, which would be quite interesting, wouldn't it? TV, Johnny Field. Manners maketh the man. Keep opening doors, JK. Great show. Johnny from Kettering. Oh, that's because the woman said why, because I'm a woman when I opened the door for her. Hi, JK. While there is an obvious issue with security around MPs, we should also be looking at dealing with the underlying cause, and the people carrying out abuse and potential attacks on any public figure should be dealt with more stringently. If you abuse or threaten anyone in public life, then it should be tackled quickly and robustly. Kian in Cornwall. I do actually agree, can't remember, obviously, because I'm getting old, who said it earlier, but I do believe that the high-tech companies should have some responsibility for some of the complete and utter abusive drivel that is on their networks. I do think there should be something. Oh, Jezza, when England win tomorrow, tell Starmer to stay away from the final. No, it's his big final moment. He's going to fly there, wave with his shirt on, come back and resign. Farage is no longer an MP. Why would anybody offer him any security? It's a very interesting point. He isn't. Regarding Ann Widdecombe, Nigel from Brighton, I'd like to highlight how I believe parts of the establishment media have framed this story. On Sunday, the BBC News app headline stated that the murder was not politically motivated. Yet today, after scanning the app, I find no prominent reference to reports that it is now being treated as a politically motivated act. Of course, it's the BBC. Seems to me that some sections of the media have been more concerned with the political implications of this and its potential impact on attacks against reform than with the human tragedy of such a horrific killing. If the facts have changed, then the reporting should change with them and with equal prominence. Wow, true. What all this poor Ann Widdecombe business suggests to me is how poor Devon and Cornwall police are. And are other police forces as bad as well? In which case, we're all in the doodah. What's doodah? Oh, poo. Morning, JK and Matt. Sorry, this was a bit aged. Matt went 4 days ago. I am a great believer that when talking about people who have died or have been murdered, to stick to the principle of if you have got nothing nice to say nothing at all. Completely right. 9:30. Here's a lady who is a regular on this show and on this station. For me, a beacon of brilliance in a sea of mediocrity. A woman who used to be a detective constable, resigned from Greater Manchester Police because of her horror at the grooming gang scandal and how it was dealt with. She is fighting that. I want to ask her broader questions as well today. Maggie Oliver, good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy.
A police lady who resigned out of principle. We'll talk about Mahmood and the Rotherham guy in a minute. Thank you. What do you make of this sort of change to the Ann Widdecombe murder story overnight? Anti-terror cops now running the investigation. Many people have turned their ire on Devon and Cornwall police simply because, and understandably, I guess, they said straight out, we don't think it's politically motivated. Turns out it's absolutely politically motivated. Why are police forces getting it so wrong? Is it pressure from the government? Is it pressure from media? Is it coming from the top? What is it, Mags?
You know what, Jeremy? I've been listening to all this because if you remember, you probably won't remember, but when I was in Celebrity Big Brother, Ann Widdecombe was in the house with me. I don't know if you remember that. Yes. So I knew her reasonably well, a real character, a lot of opinions. But, you know, I've weighed all this up, and I actually like them to communicate with the public. And with a live investigation, it does evolve and it does develop. And you actually can't have it both ways. You've either got to have them being, communicate to the best of their ability with what they know at that point, or they remain silent. So, things do evolve and move on. So I personally would rather have them being honest and transparent, even if that leads to a difference and a change in direction.
No, I get that, but there's a suspicion. How am I going to put this without confusing even myself? It's my age, apparently, they keep telling me in this building. There's a suspicion that the things that were said instantly, like it's a white British person and it's not terror-related, was not politically convenient, but told to be said and designed to make sure that people didn't start thinking. I mean, I've said to you, I don't know if I've said to you before, my whole theory about the Southport thing, and I am not a conspiracy theorist, is I think they knew absolutely that Ruda Bacana wasn't an illegal migrant straight away, but there was such a febrile atmosphere on social media, and Starmer and his government let that build and build. People took to the streets out of fear and anger. I'm not saying that any of that is right. They were hoovered up, arrested, tried and jailed within 24 hours, all on camera, and he came out and said everybody's far right. And I believe at that moment it suited his political situation. I think that, if we're being fair, has put pressure on police. But I would only question Devon and Cornwall in that they also said this is policing at its finest. Well, if that's policing at its finest, you would understand people get pretty frustrated, Maggie.
Well, you know what, Jeremy? I'm working with the police every day, and the system really is pretty much on its knees. I think Devon and Cornwall probably have very rarely handled a case like this in the past. Yeah. And, I human error happens. And if, as you know, they arrested one man, first of all, very quickly. It looks to me as though things have come to light that they didn't know then. So I personally would rather have the communication, even when it changes further down the road. With the Southport riots, you are absolutely on the same page as me. That was about covering up the truth and keeping the public in the dark. And we had that with was it Nicola Bulley, the young woman?
Yes, I covered that story. The mother who had some issues and eventually was found, I think, in a river, but the police... The site was open, people were doing reports. They said she had the perimenopause. They said she liked dreadful stuff. That's right, it was shocking. So, but they kept the public in the dark for a long, long time, didn't they? If you remember. So with this, I think there's still a lot to come out. I find it very odd that somebody would drive all the way from Rotherham all the way down to Devon, it sounds like she's had a horrific death, and, it's really, really frightening, really. And it's opened up so many questions, but we will no doubt, this is an ongoing. I have to point out, you'd know this, he is a suspect. There are no charges at this point, and I found out not an hour ago that they can hold in the police the anti-terror cops for 14 days. So this isn't a story that's going to go away. The other thing I was really keen to get your brilliant best on, my darling. You, of course, the Rochdale grooming gangs have been central to everything that you've done in your life, and the Maggie Oliver Foundation. Every time I shall tell everybody and anybody, go online. This is the most extraordinary organisation this lady has set up to help victims, and she's always been victim-orientated, and that's why she resigned with the police. I'd been knighting. You should have a damehood by now. Yesterday, Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, not very tall, not that that matters, presumably trying to impress Burnham, not that that matters, announces a legal change in a bid to deport the Rochdale grooming, gang leader, Shabir Ahmed. Ready for this, Max? It's going to take a year for it to come into effect. I would only say this piece of raped nearly 50 girls... 41 years he was given to serve concurrently. He did 14 years and he's out on licence. He's free to roam wherever the hell he wants. He's in this country. I have no understanding, and I never will, if you can bring legislation with a majority government to say the pubs stay open till 5 within 12 hours. If you can deal with British Steel in 24, why can't you deal with this piece of crap who ruins so many girls' lives?
My take on that, Jeremy, is they don't want to. I mean, he was sentenced 14 years ago in 2012. This should have been addressed when he was first sentenced. They knew then that this antiquated law was in force. But, you know, for me, it's a bit of a deflection for me, because this is one man when we have similar situation all through the country with thousands of victims and survivors. And, you know, I don't know if you're aware, but last week the National Audit Office did a report all about probation, all about electronic tagging. That what they've said is that they need at least 2,200 more staff in probation to make it safe. That electronic tagging is not fit for purpose, and there are so many people that are, you know, contravening the conditions of their license. I feel that the deportation, for me, he should be in prison for 41 years. I would rather spend that money building more prisons on the top of Dartmoor or wherever.
I don't understand. Maybe I'm naive. Here's my thing, right? They tell me all the time that the blob run the government. So I'm going to put myself in Sir Keir Starmer's shoes. Day 2 of whenever it was 2 years ago. This is on my desk, undoubtedly. I'm going to have him deported. I'm going to put him on a plane to land in Pakistan, and otherwise I'm going to ban visas. I'm going to cut trade links.
Yeah,
I'm going to get. I don't understand how politicians cannot or will not accept that this is possibly, in my humble opinion, one of the biggest stains on my country and on my society ever in my lifetime. There seems to be no mention, except from by you, of these girls whose lives have been completely destroyed. I hear female commentators who drive me nuts, this particular one. All she talks about, on and on and on, is it's not all migrant men. I don't give a are you joking? Why is a woman not sticking up for girls? It's beyond me, Mags.
Well, you know what, Jeremy, you're talking about, you know, 2 years ago when Labour came into power, and this isn't a political point, it's about a skill set. Keir Starmer, when I worked on Rochdale in 2012, when I resigned, was the Director of Public Prosecutions. So he knew full well, or he should have done, as the top lawyer in our country, that this antiquated law existed, as must have the Chief Prosecutor in GMP. So they knew full well they could not deport him on release because this law existed. My take on it, and I've thought about it a lot the last week, why now, after 14 years, are they suddenly saying, oh, we're going to deport him? And actually, that's half the story. Pakistan has said we're not taking him, but they've had 14 years, and I believe that
Pakistan are saying they're not taking him. On what basis?
They don't have that Shabir Ahmed reneged or gave up his Pakistani citizenship many years ago. But the reality is, Jeremy, that you know, they knew about this all those years ago, and I think this is a reaction to, it's reactive, not proactive. And the Rochdale case, because of the young girls, the children involved, with myself, allowed their story to be told in the drama Three Girls. I think on sentencing that the government, you know, Keir Starmer, all of them thought this would fade away. But the Rochdale case is the one that keeps on giving. It keeps educating the country in where these huge gaps are in a system which is broken, which doesn't look after the welfare of victims, where they have no voice, they have no power, and everything revolves around the monsters who, in my opinion, should stay in prison and serve the full sentence. So I think this is a public relations exercise again. And let's be right, it's free. It's not going to take any investment to deport him. But Pakistan are not going to take him. But these arguments could have been had 14 years ago, and they should have been.
I honestly, in all of what I do, you're like a beacon of light amongst a sea of whatever. What job you do for these girls, I just don't understand. I don't. It's like the post office scandal, but worse. The very integrity of so much I believe in is missed. I don't understand how anybody can go to bed at night and think, you know what, an 8-year-old girl was raped by a British Pakistani man, and he's served just 14 years, and he's now back in society. Where I come from, that's just not allowed. I don't know.
Well, you know, it's common sense, a lot of this. You don't have to be a Home Secretary. But you would think that somebody who is the Director of Public Prosecutions would have a grip of it. And the other thing this shows me, and we spoke the other week, didn't we, Jeremy, that, you know, the victims, not just in Rochdale, throughout the whole country, there is no system. When they walk out of a courtroom at a trial, there is nothing that looks after their welfare.
Right.
I've had to get involved in putting in security systems. And actually today, I have just had a conversation this morning with a guy who was offered to put in CCTV for free to protect some of these girls. That should be provided by the government. And yet there is not even an agency or a department that looks after their welfare after a trial.
And isn't it ironic that we live under a government and so much of a left who say, be kind, be diverse, be inclusive, don't be disrespectful. Well, what about young white girls who are being... Oh, mate, honestly, keep the fight. We love you, Mags. And, well, we have to keep the fight. There's only a few sane ones left. Thank you, darling. Really, really good to have you on the show, as always. The Maggie Oliver Foundation. Go online, donate, join. Unbelievable lady. Morning, Rob.
Morning, Jez. I'll start by mentioning Ann Widdecombe because she deserves to be mentioned again so soon after the tragic loss of her life in the most brutal fashion, a little old lady. We knew it would be politically motivated, and it's proven to be. Then we've got Andy Burnham stepping into the hot seat, the King of the North, a man who refuses to step forward and speak to the nation after this earthquake that's gone off in England, and he didn't feel it necessary to step forward. He hasn't stepped forward because he's got nothing to say. The man hasn't got any plans. He's trying to write something up on the back of a scrappy piece of paper before he steps into the hot seat, and he realises he's going to fall very quickly. He wasn't the answer to this question. They didn't have a one on the front bench is the most bizarre. How anybody cannot see how bad the Labour Party are when they didn't have a sitting MP to take on the job at hand. Come on, England.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. So it'll be full-on semi-final looking forward tomorrow on The Breakfast Show. Stand by for 10 o'clock. Duncan barks! No, I'm sorry, it's so rubbish. Fantastic sounded yesterday. Looking forward to hearing him from 10 o'clock. Duncan barks on Talk. 1 o'clock, Ian Collins, the housewives' favourite. Mrs. Carr just go... Oh, he's got such a voice. But he is as short as me. And Kevin O'Sullivan, as mad as ever and sounding fantastic on drive time. 9:45. Morning, Jez. The people of Makerfield elected Andy Burnham as their MP to represent them. Since he was sworn in, he's never been seen in Parliament to represent anyone. He invites the media to his speeches and doesn't let them ask questions. He wants to move Parliament to the north. Where's his mandate? Well, he doesn't have one. He will, though, be making his maiden speech in the House of Commons this afternoon about the Hillsborough situation. It's a bill that's going through. And hopefully, as he's going to be the... Imagine him this morning just woke up and went, I'll be Prime Minister in 6 days. I'll be living in Downing Street. Wow. I'm afraid to say the terrorism against the right side of politics is working, says Troy in Suffolk. How many people just yesterday were saying they wanted to stand for reform but thought twice because of the danger? The fanatical far left is extremely dangerous, as they are clearly willing to get physical. It needs to be stopped. Good morning to Robin Cross. Are you? Ridiculous. Honestly, they look at me through the glass. It's like being in a care home increasingly. They just sort of look at me through the glass. It reminds me of me visiting my father during COVID. You know what he said to me? I said, you all right? He went, yeah. I said, why? He said, they can't get away from me. All the old ladies have to listen to me. Yeah, you take... Yeah, that's what they're saying. Do you know what they're saying through the glass? The team are saying, we're paid to be here and we'll take it in turns to check on you, Jez. You just crack on talking to yourself. Rubbish. Jez, it could be that the Ann Widdecombe inquiry has been handed over to the anti-terror police to enable the 14 days custody to come into play. Interesting. Not sure that happens, though. Linda Whittingham. Hi, Jez. Why hasn't Starmer put his party back in line for the nasty comments on Anne? Surely he should tell them to stop this and give their respects. It's disgraceful. I think, Linda, because he probably only cares about one thing, and that's going to the World Cup final and resigning on Monday. Right, no week, no day would be complete without the utterings of a woman who brings more joy to my life than certainly my first two wives did. Angela Levin, royal biographer, good morning.
It's so funny.
What, just to look at or to be with? What are you talking about?
No, to say what about me. Anyway.
We haven't spoken since the bombshell news that under the guise...
Where did you go?
Well, I've been busy. Under the guise of Charles and Camilla at Highgrove, beautiful house, which you passed on the way to the Cheltenham Racecourse. Anyway, under the guise of some sort of 20 people coming to look round Highgrove, through the back on Friday in a blacked-out van, sped Prince Harry, Meghan Unsparkle and the two children to see their grandfather. We're not quite sure how long it lasted. Some people are saying an hour. Some are saying more. The fallout from it has been we're all sitting waiting for it to be leaked. Nothing so far. Apparently William was appalled. The following day, Harry looked like the cat that got the cream, because you and I both know that the Sussex brand's dead now, isn't it, anywhere in the world, unless they can actually prove to have some link still with the very family they spend their entire life slagging off.
Well, I don't know that they will kill that link. I think he's going to be OK with everything because Elton John's going to pay him masses of money.
Who is? Who is?
Elton John.
He's going to pay who masses of money? Oh, Harry.
Harry.
Oh, yes, this is because he lost, didn't he, that court case last week, and he doesn't have the money to pay legal bills of up to 20 million after humiliating defeat, but A-list pal Elton might come to the rescue. And Meghan is furious. What does that mean? Why is she furious?
Well, Meghan is furious because she hasn't done everything she wanted. When they knew they were going to come to the UK and London, she sent a list of what she wanted done for her at Buckingham Palace. Can you believe that? But they didn't go to a palace. They went to a home, and she didn't get what she wanted. She both of them had demanding no Camilla, no Queen. They don't like her, so they didn't want her in there. But the King likes her very much, and she's
he's married to her. Is she? I mean, yeah. I like my current wife because I'm married to her. Not so keen on the other two, obviously, but I mean, if you're married to somebody, you like them at that point, don't you?
But Camilla didn't like it, and Harry didn't like it, so that's much more important than the King liking his wife. But anyway, she was there, and she was there just to make sure everything was calm.
Yes.
Because Harry could have gone shouting, and Camilla wouldn't be able to say what she would want to say. She probably didn't give them a jam or honey, you know, as a present and to help her thing going because there were no pictures. So really, I was quite shocked the King saw them because I felt he can't actually be so close. But actually thinking about it and looking things up, it was quite clever.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't do anything they wanted.
Well, I'll tell you why I think I'm completely with you, because I think there was... I mean, I don't think William was very happy. I don't think the Queen was very happy, but I'll tell you why I think it's clever. And I thought about this overnight, because I don't know much else to do, because I don't sleep. His son has been emotionally blackmailing him and wants to deal and titles before the King passes. That's me being very straight and very honest with everybody, because there's not a look in... There isn't a chance in hell that William will ever thaw. That's my opinion. So the King was under that sort of pressure, didn't want to be criticised for not seeing his grandchildren. But the truth of the matter is it was probably an hour. If they leak anything at all, right, that's it forever, and they know that. If it is just what it is, how much does that benefit the Sussex brand? Not much. I asked you why she was furious, because I think she'll be furious about that. I think she'll be furious about the 20 million. I think she might well be furious because she sussed out that none of us want her in our bloody country, if you want me to be honest.
Yeah, but also Harry said that he would do his absolute best to stop them letting the male go, continue, right? And he spoke to the judge and everything, saying, you know, Meghan is so miserable. It's got so miserable. It's just terrible. And he hoped, like she hoped, they would feel, well, a wonderful woman like Meghan can't actually have this effect. So that's what they were trying to do, to make her happy. And she wasn't. She hasn't got what she wanted.
Is she a bit of, do you think she's a bit of hard work for Harry, old Meghan?
Harry does hard work for Meghan, yes, he does. He tries to please her. He wants to make her happy, but she's a woman who doesn't actually happy easily, if ever, because she always wants more and more. Nothing is good enough. And this was not good enough because she didn't like how still doesn't like how the male works. And she could have brought it down because Harry was so determined. But luckily the judge and everybody else tried hard not to, because it wasn't right. But this is why she feels that she's above everybody. You know, she's got such a sort of...
narcissist.
Yeah, well, I don't say that because I'm not a doctor, because I don't know. But she is terrible, nasty, and she makes things very, very difficult. And Harry can't keep up with her.
Do you think she knows, Angela? Serious question here. Do you think she knows how unpopular she is?
But she can't understand it.
Oh, really? What?
Wrong.
Because she thinks she's brilliant?
Yeah, but more than. Yes, she does feel that way. And she is, you know, a marvellous, amazing human person. And anybody who actually doesn't like her is out in her sort of line of friends.
It was interesting that she wasn't seen at all in England. I do think that is relevant. They obviously slipped in and out. You're right, probably. Actually, she didn't get... Is an audience with the king enough? Do you know what I felt like saying last week? And because I never think anything through, because I'm getting that old, I forget what I thought before I write it down. They called him... What's the kid called? What's the son of Harry called? Archie, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. I'm really surprised that those two want the kids to have titles bestowed upon them by a racist organisation that they loathe. I didn't really understand that.
Yes, she wants to have that because this is what she's created from her body or from her life. She's got 2 children who are royals. She doesn't like it, but she likes it for the kids. And I think it's awful for them because I think children would be attacked and bullied when they've got a very long thing like what they've got, you know. And I think that she just thinks that she's achieved something marvellous. But she doesn't actually think that things are very clever for her. She just...
I mean, you're a thinker. Where do you go from, with respect? Where do you go from a product of jam that doesn't work? What's next? I mean, the jam's a flop. I mean, podcast was a flop. Spare was a flop. Everything's been a flop. Why don't you just get the message and sod off and bring your kids up?
She doesn't feel she's a flop.
Oh.
The people who've been working with her are the flop.
Is that why she sacks them all the whole time, Angela?
Yes, of course. She's doing that. And the thing that worries me is that they went to the, where is it that...
Portugal?
No. Where they went to see the water where the Diana's died.
Althorpe House.
Althorpe, thank you. And Althorpe, because she wants to do a programme about it, you see. Harry's going to produce it with her. Oh, now, they're obviously going to take photographs of this, and actually it's just shocking that she could have been allowed to do that.
She's going to make a programme about Diana, the late, great Diana Spencer. Yes. She is, Meghan.
Meghan is.
Was she going to star in it as herself? Cameo role, is it?
I don't know, but Netflix wouldn't do anything for them, so she's doing it under her own working with Harry, and they'll try and do it together. Can you imagine? She's going to let him do anything? She'll be doing it.
Don't tell me they took cameras to the graveside.
Loads of nasty things in all the time. And she'll do that because she thinks she's the only person who can bring this thing out and do it well. And so people will look at it and say, well done, Meghan. But they won't, because it'll be rude, unkind, spiteful, nasty. It will be boring.
Is that how you describe Meghan, those things?
Could be.
Do you know what somebody's just said in my ear? Watching you and I on televisions, we both forget the names and everything. It's like watching two old people in a home. It's great, isn't it? Should we just get old together gracefully?
Oh, that's awful.
You're younger than me, though, aren't you, Levin?
I'm not saying anything about my age.
You're much younger.
I don't know what your age is.
61.
51. Ah,
61.
Right. 61.
Yes.
Okay.
Good. Anyway, doctor's ready for you, Angela. Thank you. I've had my turn. We love having you on, my darling. Thank you so much indeed. I love her. Angela Levin, royal biographer on the television and breakfast show that's turning into a care home. Duncan barks. No, he doesn't. He talks, and he talks sense. He's on next at Talk Breakfast. What is it? Oh, we can read... If you want to get a text or something on very quickly, 87222. Start your message with the word talk. This is Breakfast, back in 3.
I thought about it hard, and I've decided today I will resign as a Member of Parliament for Clacton-on-Sea, thereby forcing a by-election.
Count Binface apparently is now 5-1. Brilliant. You know, so look, I mean, you know, if I were being flippant, I'd say Count Binface's campaign is now well and truly up and running, and Reform are struggling to put a lid on it.
Let me be absolutely clear. I have done nothing wrong. I have not broken the law.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Can I just finish the show with the most miserable text I've ever read from Reg Gardner? Frankly, Jez, as much as I hate to say it, I think I'd rather lose to Argentina tomorrow in the football than have to face the humiliation of seeing the nasal night at the World Cup final. We say a very good morning to the legend that is Duncan Barks.
Morning.
How are you?
I'm all right.
I thought you were excellent yesterday.
You're a very kind man.
There's so much going on now. It's an anti-terror cop investigation with Ann Widdecombe. It's led to discussions about security. Dan Hodges is quite vocal this morning, saying Reform are using this. I interviewed Richard Tice earlier, and I think it's had a profound effect on everybody. I really do.
No question about it. I mean, we broke the news yesterday during the show that it was now being investigated, Ann Widdecombe's suspected murder by counter-terrorism police. So we talked about that yesterday. We're going to continue the conversation a little bit today, simply asking the question, what more can be done to protect our politicians? And I'll tell you why. There's a story here in the Times of Green Party councillors attended a transgender rights rally where they were stabbing darts into an effigy of Andy Burnham. This kind of thing normally